A godlike figure offers Zenon a second chance at life in another world, asking what he would do if given that opportunity. At night, while everyone else sleeps, Zenon picks up live streaming as a hobby, broadcasting sound only to hide his identity. By day, Zenon lives as a student at Sistel Royal Academy in Ataraxia, Rogia's kingdom, walking home quietly after his teacher and classmates say goodbye. Back in his dorm, he prepares for another stream, changing out of his uniform, since the time has come to go live again. Under the alias Streamer, Zenon greets his audience energetically, asking how everyone's day went. As viewers flood the chat with excitement, a listener named Akuda, a B-rank adventurer, joins in, and Streamer announces the start of the chat's advice segment. Starting with the first letter, the letter comes from a party leader who bragged about kicking out a weak member who could only use support magic. Admitting it felt satisfying to watch him suffer, Streamer immediately calls out the leader's arrogance, explaining that scouting magic prevents ambushes and repair magic saves money. Streamer delivers a sharp warning, saying he doesn't care if the leader thinks he is above everyone, and tells him to resign now before his poor judgment gets the whole party killed. Viewers praise the response, joking that the arrogant leader should get on his knees and beg the support member to return. The next letter comes from a noble's son already engaged, admitting he isn't sure if Streamer's advice will actually reach him. The letter reveals the noble has fallen for a transfer student and plans to leave his fiancée for her, hoping his fiancée dies so she'll marry him instead. The chat and Streamer erupt in anger, scolding him for ignoring his family's expectations and warning him not to choose people based on looks alone. A dramatic imaginary scene plays out with a woman scolding him for jealousy while chat mocks him for not appreciating what he already has. As the stream wraps up, Zenon reflects quietly, wondering if this is what being a real streamer felt like back in his old life. Kanata, a transfer student, is revealed to be sitting nearby, seemingly unaware that the boy beside her is secretly the popular streamer. The next day at school, Zenon recalls how magic relies entirely on imagination, and admits he has grown used to living in this world since his reincarnation. He remembers how thrilled he once was discovering magic existed, though now it feels completely ordinary to him. At age 4, Kanata realized his magic would shape his future, later earning an S rank on the magic exam. Despite his talent, noble classmates surround him, sneering that he doesn't belong and can never change his low status no matter how hard he tries. Asked how he'd handle a magic demonstration, Kanata shrugs and suggests asking the teacher, while two nearby students snicker at his indifferent attitude. Late for class, a girl named Maria Ataraxia rushes in apologizing, only to freeze when she recognizes two students being scolded for talking. Instead of performing, Maria thanks a boy for his kindness, but he brushes it off, assuming she has been too busy helping around her house to notice the tension. After hesitating, Kanata steps in and declares he'll perform in the other boy's place, surprising his classmate who wonders if Kanata's rank status is finally showing. Kanata confirms he has already placed a fireproof seal around the area and prepares to unleash fire magic directly at the target. The blast erupts with terrifying force, sending shockwaves through the crowd as bystanders scramble and someone shouts for him to fire. When it is finally Kanata's turn for the official demonstration, his classmates cheer him on before he unleashes another precise shot at the target. The explosion completely obliterates the target, leaving Kanata's female classmate horrified, and Kanata himself realizing he went overboard with the power. The teacher praises the devastating display as proof of the student's strength, while another instructor stares in disbelief that a mere commoner could produce such destruction. During individual training, a girl approaches two boys, prompting one to accuse Kanata of obviously cheating with his abilities. The girl, visibly protective, snaps at the boys mocking Kanata and questions what exactly they think they're doing confronting him. Onlookers gasp in shock, recognizing her as Lady Maria, stunned that someone of her status is standing up for a commoner, insisting the situation has nothing to do with social status and that some people simply possess the qualities needed to succeed. A nearby prince overhears and stops Kanata, praising his magic as genuinely impressive despite his commoner status. Maria explains that she is the youngest of the three princesses and admits people are naturally curious why conflicts around status keep happening around her. Walking together afterward, Kanata insists he said nothing, while Maria teases him, warning him not to provoke people even when he is frustrated. Alone that night, Kanata grumbles that the other students were the ones who started the conflict in the first place. Back at his terminal, Kanata recalls how he modified his old work device into something resembling a proper streaming setup. Using his limitless power, Kanata built what functions as a streaming platform, giving people in a world with almost no entertainment technology something new to access. Reflecting on the day's events, Kanata vents on stream about the ongoing tension between nobles and commoners. A donation of 10 gold coins arrives on stream, leaving Kanata stunned as he thanks the sender, addressing her as princess. Chat speculates the anonymous donor must be draining her parents' wallet, joking that it is starting to feel unsettling, while Kanata calculates that back in his old life, the princess insists there is no need to worry, revealing that all the money comes from her own personal funds, not anyone else's. Kanata dismisses the idea of ever meeting her in public, assuming she is probably just a guy pretending to be a girl online. Lying alone in her room, the princess admits to herself that she can't help falling for him, treasuring yet another side of his personality that she has come to love. She hugs his voice message close, replaying his words over and over, completely lost in her feelings for him. She recalls how he appeared out of nowhere like a comet, captivating everyone with his charisma and influence in an instant. She remembers his kind guidance and the countless people he helped save, admiring his boldness to face backlash head on and his ability to give honest. Holding his message, she feels as though his voice has entered her mind, as if every part of her has been marked by his presence. Overwhelmed with devotion, she dreams of giving herself fully to him, of offering financial support without holding anything back. Consumed by emotion, she cries out that she wants to live for him, revealing that in Ataraxia, streamer has already gathered a massive circle of devoted followers. More people bound by similarly intense feelings begin appearing throughout the world, drawn deeper into his growing influence, unknowingly becoming the catalyst for it all. Kanata remains completely unaware of the storm building around him, one that will soon spark a major incident. Kanata, reincarnated into this world with unlimited magical power hidden beneath his ordinary appearance, keeps running his stream as the only broadcaster this world has ever known. Another round of donations lands on his screen, 10 gold coins arriving with a familiar chime. It has become routine, one outcome repeating itself night after night. Walking home, Kanata chooses the emptier streets on purpose. Since the last incident, rumors about explosion magic and a commoner scoring high marks have made him a target for gossip he'd rather avoid. Ahead of him, a boy declares his love to Maria with everything he has. Kanata watches from a distance before quietly deciding to clear his head the only way he knows. Going live blocked from his usual path, he spots the third princess and her supposed fiancée. She turns the boy down gently, telling him her heart already belongs to someone else. The rejected suitor takes it in stride, wishing her happiness before running off. Left alone, the princess's expression falters, the mask slipping the moment she thinks no one is watching. Kanata mutters to himself about luck and good deeds, then catches sight of Maria passing by, elegant and striking enough to leave him momentarily flustered. Before he can retreat, his shadow gives him away. Maria catches him lurking and he fumbles an apology, insisting he was only taking his way home. She waves it off as a joke, though something about the exchange lingers with her, an accent that feels oddly out of place for this world. Later that night, Kanata goes live again, greeting his audience with practiced energy while Maria, watching from her room, reacts with visible surprise at the sight of the streamer. Donations pour in until the amount startles her. She thanks her viewers but reminds them to look after themselves first, uneasy about how much they're giving. Elsewhere, another viewer types furiously, determined to claim the title of top supporter and prove her devotion to the streamer. A demon and Kanata sit together discussing coexistence, the demon questioning why peace seems so hard to accept. Kanata admits he still doesn't fully understand the hostility. Chat fills with arguments about demons, slavery, and discrimination. Subjects treated as taboo. Maria recalls once voicing similar doubts herself. The nameless princess orders her carriage to stop, telling her butler Sebas to halt outside a place she recognizes. Inside, caged people cry out, mistaking her for someone who might free them, while others accuse her of not understanding their suffering. Sebas urges her to leave, but she confirms it, a slave market. Something she'd only read about until now. Back home, she wonders aloud whether anything can be done, learning that certain nobles still quietly profit from the trade. Simona suggests reaching out to the streamer for help while a prisoner clings to hope that a solution exists. The stream's comments erupt at the revelation that slavery persists. The nameless princess declares her intent to end the market herself, since her status might finally make change possible. The princess declares her plan outright, that she and Maria are heading to see the king. Her father, catching Maria completely off guard, Sebas is ordered to prepare the carriage. Watching from a distance, onlookers doubt she can really be royalty, given how she carries herself. She looks forward to reforms that might finally give mistreated slaves reason to hope again. Time passes, slavery is eradicated, and strict enforcement keeps it from returning. No more suffering slaves remain. Under a crescent moon, she vows to keep believing in the one who showed her the way, promising to follow him from here on. Back at the academy, Maria decides she'll act as mediator between commoners and nobles, convinced discrimination only works against peace. Elsewhere, chat argues over who deserves to be closest to the streamer, each voice insisting they're the rightful one. The nameless princess declares herself the most suitable candidate, flooding the stream with donations to prove her devotion. Kanata, caught off guard, insists he is flattered but not looking for trouble from overly enthusiastic fans. Maria simply says she dislikes people quarreling where everyone can see. Alone afterward, the princess spirals, convinced the streamer hates her. Mixing genuine worry with theatrical despair, she resolves to do better despite her immaturity, promising to try getting along, even as Kanata brings up how getting along with demons matters just as much. He wonders aloud what the Demon King even looks like, drawing panicked reactions from chat begging him to drop the subject. Prior Kanata's controversial transmission, Lady Shrouza overcame mortal challengers and rejected their power, lacking worry. Following unsealing a portal, Shrouza reminded everybody that mortals stayed much frailer than mighty fiends. Regardless centuries of clash, Shrouza queried if ceaseless combat genuinely benefited either side anymore. Upon coming back residence, Shrouza obtained respect from subordinates, but stayed preoccupied by unresolved ideas. Learning about Kanata's transmission from adventurers, Shrouza grew inquisitive about the enigmatic broadcaster and his concepts. Intrigued by the enigmatic broadcaster, Shrouza discovered his transmissions required a unique communication frequency to access. Subsequent Shrouza's orders, her subordinates constructed the essential gear and established the link. Following testing the instrument, Shrouza resolved attending sometimes could provide details beyond common intelligence records. Multiple days afterward, Shrouza entered a transmission and attended whilst Kanata reviewed daily incidents. What started as basic curiosity shortly grew a habit, as Kanata's transmissions accessed Shrouza's routine. Whilst attending solitary, Shrouza grew captivated by Kanata's tremendous mystical strength and peculiar perspective on community. Kanata queried ceaseless warfare publicly, surprising Shrouza and forcing her to reconsider long-held beliefs. Overhearing his proposal for harmony talks, Shrouza understood cooperation might achieve further than clash. From that date onward, Shrouza viewed Kanata as a believed ally, instead than a foe in the present. Shrouza silently donated to Kanata's show, earning kind worry about her using. Consumed by Kanata's transmissions, Shrouza cherished each donation notification and dropped into total fixation. A passing remark about encountering the Fiend Lord stirred her spirit and fueled innumerable hopeful daydreams. Following dispatching additional notes, she obtained Kanata's casual encouragement, which strengthened her attachment still further. Whilst resting in the wash, the Fiend Lord confessed her longing and loyal ideas towards Kanata. Regardless embracing these emotions entirely, an urgent record reached and compelled her focus. Meanwhile, while soaking, Shrouza rejected concerns from her attendant and stayed consumed by ideas of Kanata. Incapable to contain her emotions, she imagined encountering Kanata and gripping him inside her arms. Driven by longing, the Fiend Lord opened a portal and contemplated touring the mortal realm herself. Hovering above the fortress grounds, she readied an outrageous proposal and intended her next move. Instead than seeking conquest or strength, she resolved to fulfill what she assumed Kanata desired. The subsequent dawn, odd news spread, rendering Kanata's peers puzzled by sudden developments. Throughout the nation, records disclosed that fiends had asked harmony, astonishing citizens and aristocrats alike. Kanata stayed oblivious that his casual remarks had affected incidents much beyond his expectations. Following finishing his latest transmission, Kanata departed his chamber and resolved to enjoy a dinner beyond. As he strolled through city, Kanata relished the tranquil atmosphere whilst observing peculiar sights about him. Closeby, a scared girl, bumped into a rough fellow who insisted compensation from her. Witnessing no guards, Kanata understood ignoring the circumstance would merely allow the issue to worsen. Lacking hesitation, he faced the fellow and queried why similar rage pursued a harmless accident. Stepping ahead at last, Kanata confronted the thug and insisted he release the scared girl. Rather of battling further, the shaken fellow retreated following recognizing Kanata possessed unforeseen power beyond appearances. With threat gone, the reassured girl lowered her hood whilst Kanata verified if she was safe. Overhearing Kanata speak, the enigmatic girl felt his tones sounded recognizable, stirring curiosity inside her. Prior rendering, she appreciated Kanata, whilst he observed her concealed power beneath a kind look. Following rescuing her earlier, Kanata obtained sincere thanks, although he rejected praise and contrasted himself to people. Throughout their dialogue, the girl observed Kanata's wounded palm and inquired about the cause with worry. Instead than exaggerating matters, Kanata clarified the wound came from cleaning labor and would heal shortly. Touched by his honesty, the girl urged caution, whilst Kanata respected her kind personality. An uncomfortable misunderstanding pursued when Kanata guessed her age incorrectly. Rendering both flustered, the youthful scientist brushed aside Kanata's worries, insisting her condition triggered no difficulty. Amused by her peculiar attitude, Kanata embraced the account whilst questioning about her odd personality. Following exchanging farewells, they parted ways, rendering Kanata inquisitive about her background and religious affiliation. Afterward that evening, the saintess came back residence, where additional nun welcomed her arrival within chapel grounds. Overhearing regarding the scam incident, the nun scolded the saintess, regretting that secrecy invited threat. Whilst discussing diplomacy, the saintess clarified that compassion and understanding stayed essential for preserving tranquil ties. Her fellow sister respected that belief, whilst the saintess insisted each individual deserved equivalent treatment. Afterward within the chapel, she reflected on Kanata, recalling his compassion regardless uncertainty. Encircling him, drawn by these ideas, the saintess verified Kanata's show anew, following confirming noon was close by. Overcome with enthusiasm, she rejoiced overhearing Kanata's transmission, regarding his look like a divine blessing. Whilst attending, the scientist grew fascinated by Kanata's tone and cherished each transmission. Beyond the chapel, additional sister commended her composure. Oblivious intense emotions were rising beneath that composed date. Following date, the saintess loyal herself entirely, readying both form and thoughts for Kanata. Attending to additional transmission, overwhelming enthusiasm overtook her thoughts, causing irrational daydreams about Kanata throughout. The show, Kanata disclosed his palms, unknowingly exposing a significant hint about himself. Identifying the particulars, the saintess understood Kanata had accidentally disclosed his location to watchers. Throughout his show, Kanata tested a fresh sorcery instrument, whilst displaying watchers his wounded palms, checking the camera feed. Kanata verified everything worked correctly and clarified why bandages stayed essential. Confident Noon could identify him from similar particulars. Kanata rejected concerns and proceeded streaming informally. Meanwhile, both the scientess and Shrouza identified these palms, growing stunned by the discovery. Oblivious of their responses, Kanata reviewed everyday accidents, providing still further hints about himself. Whilst reviewing watcher notes throughout additional show, Kanata observed a disturbing notice concealed among common submissions. The notice disclosed threats from Mantis, a offender leader angered by Kanata's rising fame and impact. Meanwhile, both the saintess plus Shrouza reacted furiously, resolving the culprit deserved severe punishment. Instead than displaying dread, Kanata ridiculed the threat and rejected it as jealousy or hatred. Attending to the transmission, the scientess fretted about Kanata's safety, whilst criticizing reckless threats against him. Following overhearing the threat, the scientist and Shrouza pondered if Mantis grasped Kanata's impact and followers. Multiple hours afterward, chaos erupted within Mantis's lair as scared thieves crumpled and scattered everywhere. Assuming foes had betrayed him, Mantis escaped frantically through dark passages whilst shouting enraged accusations. Throughout his escape, Mantis blamed Kanata for everything. Oblivious, enigmatic forces were previously approaching close by. A composed figure emerged beyond him, disclosing that Mantis's weakness had eventually attracted perilous focus. A scientist, Shrouza, and a fighter cornered Mantis, criticizing his deeds whilst regarding his resistance with annoyance. Encircled by Kanata's loyal supporters, Mantis eventually understood multiple mighty figures had united against him. Cold declarations pursued as the believers recognized themselves, delivering judgment after the terrified thief leader. Whilst Mantis shook, the scientist and fighter denounced anyone foolish sufficient to threaten Kanata. From Mantis's perspective, the fanatical pursuers appeared frightening, proving how frightening loyal online followers could become. A few days afterward, pupils reviewed Mantis's capture, whilst Kanata attended from the background lacking worry. A lonely classmate accidentally dropped a handkerchief, although Kanata observed her troubled look. As lessons proceeded, Kanata reflected on his isolation, assuming common pupil existence stayed difficult and exhausting. Abruptly, the teacher stated a unique transfer pupil, causing enthusiasm and curiosity across the class. Prior her arrival, the teacher clarified that the newcomer possessed impact, prestige, and formidable royal connections. Overhearing these particulars, Kanata grew inquisitive as footsteps neared the class entrance from the hallway. The transfer pupil presented herself as Alphana, shocking everybody when she disclosed her position as saintess. As gossip traveled across the school, Alphana overheard that the scientist had surprisingly transferred into class. See prior long inquisitive pupils assembled about the newcomer, eager to witness the famous scientist firsthand. When queried about her transfer, the scientist proposed a basic account whilst concealing additional aim. At the identical period, Alphana remembered streamers' research describing scientesses as influential figures across history. Upon learning about her link, Alphana grew much further intrigued in observing her. Observing from afar, Alphana pondered why somebody with outstanding energy had accessed Class C. A sudden encounter reminded Alphana of their initial encountering, delivering relief that the scientist held no grudge. Shortly, Zekert presented himself and proposed to guide Alfana about the school throughout Maria's absence. Though grateful for the proposal, Alfana refused his familiarity and insisted larger respect from him. Laughter spread throughout the class following Zekert flustered himself, whilst Alfana observed the scene lacking sympathy. Throughout the practical examination, the scientist unleashed a precise water spell and ruined multiple targets. The remarkable display stunned close-by pupils who started comparing her talent to Royal Maria's skills. Observing the responses about him, Broadcaster reflected on the pressures aristocrats face when constructing connections. Following the scientist completed her turn, Kanata was summoned ahead to begin the next test. Prior stepping away, the scientist proposed brief encouragement, rendering Broadcaster astonished by her compassion. As she strolled away from the testing area, the scientist urged Broadcaster, rendering him stunned. Motivated by these unforeseen statements, Broadcaster advanced ahead with renewed assurance and readied for his attempt. Instead than repeating his earlier mistake, he controlled his energy and launched a precise attack. Though the instructor commended the outcome, multiple aristocrats proceeded mocking Broadcaster beyond his rearward. Ignoring the insults about him, Broadcaster stayed centered, although one particular remark caught his focus. Overhearing the aristocrats insult commoners, the scientist understood the academy's discrimination issue was much poorer than anticipated. Multiple pupils commended Streamer's performance, identifying the control and precision beyond his displayed sorcery. Incapable to tolerate similar arrogance, the scientist denounced the aristocrats and refused their sense of superiority. Instead than pondering on their mistakes, the scolded pupils blamed Broadcaster for their public humiliation. Afterward, Broadcaster departed the examination grounds disappointed, having missed additional opportunity to speak with her. Whilst contemplating concepts for his evening transmission, he reassured himself following attending to everyone's concerns. Just as Broadcaster settled down for a quiet dinner, the scientist emerged prior him. Following rendering the examination grounds, the scientist clarified that her walkabout campus had led her there. Lacking warning, she neared Broadcaster and welcomed him anew, catching him off guard. An instant afterward, the scientist verified that Broadcaster was the traveler she had previously met. Recalling their uncomfortable initial encounter, she asked a further natural dialogue whilst urging caution. Although he agreed to speak typically, Broadcaster fretted that being seen solitary alongside her invited difficulty. Following confirming Known was observing close by, Alfana inquired permission to call him Kanata rather. Instead than addressing her worry, Kanata queried why she disliked the formal title employed earlier. Seizing the opportunity, Alfana clarified that their reunion felt unique and asked a further personal connection. Caught amid caution and curiosity, Kanata paused before consenting to address her by name. The instant Alfana overheard her name from Kanata, she reddened and labored to hide her enthusiasm. Overhearing Kanata call her name, Alfana cherished the instant and viewed him with rising fondness. Elsewhere, Kanata faltered to notice that a basic gesture had sparked unrealistic visions inside Alfana. The subsequent dawn, he accessed Class C expecting additional common date prior spotting Alfana unusually early. To everyone's surprise, Maria emerged and welcomed Alfana, disclosing their close connection. Observing the interaction unfold, multiple peers contrasted Maria and Alfana to dazzling idols beyond reach. Whilst observing Maria and Alfana jointly, pupils respected them from afar still labored to approach either. Attending to their dialogue, Kanata observed how normally focus assembled about both influential women. Multiple peers insisted their expressions appeared artificial, although neither Maria nor Alfana had neared them. Recalling latest encounters, Kanata queried if his negative impressions resulted from misunderstandings instead than reality. Still so, observing Maria and Alfana enjoy themselves jointly departed Kanata sensing strangely jealous. Resolved to make companions himself, Kanata neared a classmate, merely to receive immediate hostility rather. Following additional faltered attempt, he slumped over his desk and pondered why everybody disliked him. Intending to rest prior streaming afterward, Kanata stayed oblivious that Maria had observed his condition. Much away inside the Xandard Empire, aristocrat privately readied an assignment concerning suspicious activities. Answering the summons lacking hesitation, Crow embraced the mission and attended to the noble's appeal. Meanwhile, Crow embraced an enigmatic assignment, whilst an ominous sensing silently spread beyond the scenes. Rearward at the school, discussions about Crow reached Kanata, who identified the notorious assassin's name. Though his peers rejected the threat, Kanata felt reassured his common background proposed some protection. Drawing upon stories from watchers and history knowledge, he understood Crow's existence was terrifyingly real. Following convincing himself the matter had no link to him, Kanata promptly drifted inside sleep. Within the noble's estate, Crow insisted the target's persona, unwilling to waste period on empty explanations. When the aristocrat proceeded boasting, Crow intimidated him, forcing a much further direct response under pressure. The aristocrat eventually disclosed that the individual he desired removed was broadcaster himself. Filled with resentment, he blamed streamers' transmissions for circulating concepts that threatened his profitable businesses. Following overhearing the full account, Crow acknowledged the appeal and readied to handle the assignment. Following receiving the advance payment, Crow attended silently prior querying the particulars beyond the assignment. To the aristocrat's astonishment, Crow abruptly announced that he could no longer approve the contract. Prior any account could follow, Crow hit initial and instantly severed the noble's skull. Remaining alongside the scattered payment, Crow stated that a lifeless client invalidated the agreement wholly. As Crow left throughout the rooftops, a close-by girl observed the disturbance and grew inquisitive, leaping throughout the rooftops following completing her mission. Crow complained regarding the inconvenience of her disguise. Removing the mask at last, Crow disclosed herself as a youthful lady loyal to Lord Broadcaster. The instant streamer's transmission started, she abandoned all composure and hurried to hear his tone. Whilst attending, Crow reflected on latest incidents and commended the comfort his shows supplied, much from acting like a legendary killer. She spent the evening daydreaming about streamer's focus. Throughout his transmission, Kanata confessed his faltered attempts at bond and inquired watchers for encouragement. Hearing the sadness in his tone, Crow became distressed that anyone had mistreated him badly. Whilst other audience shared similar frustrations, Crow imagined guarding Kanata from everybody who hurt him. Moments afterward, Kanata disclosed the tears were fake, clarifying how he formed the performance. Reviewing the peculiar remark, Kanata appreciated everybody and contemplated a further positive approach towards his peers. Upon overhearing her note noted straightforwardly, Crow froze and labored to process the instant. Elsewhere, Kanata clarified that basic conversations would be sufficient, still if bond never developed. These modest wishes merely deepened Crow's loyalty, convincing her to backing him no matter what. Encircled by trophies from earlier victims, Crow vowed to remove anyone who threatened Kanata's joy. Inside a brothel located in the royal metropolis, Kana completed her labor and left for the evening. Following coming back within, she obtained praise from the owner for additional effective and profitable date. Confident in her fame, Kana discovered that customers across the establishment had departed satisfied, smiling confidently. She embraced the compliments and acknowledged her standing as the facility's top attraction. Once the owner departed her solitary, Kana confessed desiring to hear streamer's tone too. In her chamber, Kana rested following labor, entirely conscious of the beauty that fascinated innumerable customers. Stretching throughout her bed, she reflected on additional effective date and felt profoundly satisfied. As transmission period neared, Kana appreciated Broadcaster for delivering enthusiasm and comfort into her existence. The instant his show started, she erupted with joy and welcomed him through the screen. Unbeknownst to Kanata, his impact had previously reached Kana, joining numerous loyal supporters throughout the realm. Reclining solitary following the transmission, Kana imagined a tomorrow alongside Broadcaster and cherished his existence. Unlike her present achievement, Kana had grown up in harsh slums prior entering the nightlife industry. Through how to assembling alongside coworkers, discussions about aging and poverty exposed fears they rarely voiced, though they found kinder employers than prior. Uncertainty about the tomorrow proceeded troubling everybody. Their worries proved justified when close-by customers informally refused women following learning their profession. Regardless their distressing experiences, Kana urged her coworkers to leave their worries beyond for now. Assembling about streamer's transmission jointly, they rapidly regained their smiles and chuckled at his jokes. Shortly afterward, Kanata noted witnessing discrimination, unknowingly capturing the focus of each lady attending. As he queried these prejudiced views, Kana and her companions quietly related the topic to themselves. Lacking hesitation, Broadcaster confronted the criticism and debated that Noon deserved judgment for surviving hardship. Broadcaster debated that individuals should stop judging people occupations and rather respect honest labor. His statements shifted Kana, who had never prior overheard anyone defend individuals like her with similar sincerity. Whilst pondering, Broadcaster confessed that his attempts to make companions had concluded in rejection. Overhearing that, Kana exploded with outrage on his behalf, enraged that anyone would dare mistreat the individual she respected. Just as her feelings peaked, an employee intervened, compelling Kana to put aside her fury. 107 days afterward, public outrage stayed intense, and discussions about punishing Broadcaster's detractors proceeded while seeking for meal in city. Kanata encountered Royal Maria wandering beyond, lacking attendance close by. Maria confessed her butler was panicking since she had slipped away from supervision anew. Prior Kanata could react, Maria shifted closer and inquired if he was free today. Ignoring Kanata's concerns, Maria proposed using the date jointly, placing his school standing at risk. Prior Kanata could respond correctly, Maria observed suspicious sounds close by and grew intrigued. Subsequent the disturbance, They found a scared lady struggling against an aristocrat who restrained her. Kanata intervened lacking hesitation, ordering the aristocrat away and guarding the lady from threat. Witnessing an aristocrat drag a scared lady away, Kanata and Maria intervened prior the circumstance worsened. Rather of releasing his captive, the aristocrat shifted focus towards Maria and crafted insulting remarks. Rage overcome the aristocrat afterward, causing him to threaten violence and charge ahead carelessly, employing restraint instead than force. Kanata immobilized the attacker and stopped further harm from occurring. Satisfied with Kanata's response, Maria assisted secure the victim whilst tensions slowly settled down. Following stopping the aristocrat, Kanata verified on the lady, then understood her look appeared strangely recognizable. Kana clarified the aristocrat chased her through city, rendering Kanata puzzled about his intentions. Yet enraged from defeat, the aristocrat offended Kana's profession and rejected her worth entirely. Instead than arguing emotionally, Kanata confronted the aristocrat's prejudice and exposed flaws inside his reasoning. Overhearing Kanata defend her dignity, Kana felt astonished since few individuals had spoken similarly prior. Overhearing close-by commotion, Kanata observed approaching civilians whilst the overcame aristocrat readied additional desperate scheme. Attempting escape, the aristocrat accused Kanata of theft, forgetting these witnesses reached sense of him. Elsewhere, Maria clarified the circumstance cautiously, informing assembled townspeople about Kanata rescuing a threatened lady. Shortly afterward, royal knights emerged, and Maria disclosed her persona, rendering the aristocrat entirely stunned. With the offender detained, Maria appreciated Kanata earnestly, grateful his deeds permitted justice lacking further difficulty. Following the incident concluded, Kanata observed Maria depart whilst guards reviewed stronger patrols throughout city. Approaching him afterward, Kana expressed thanks for his backing and commended his defense of her profession. Inquisitive about his persona, Kana contrasted their palms and inquired inquiries while studying Kanata's responses. Drawing from experience, she noticed his conduct intently, then verified his name with surprising assurance. Prior rendering, Kana shared her office details and invited Kanata to visit her anew someday. Prior rendering, Kana teased Kanata with a bold proposal, then left whilst enjoying his flustered response. Moments afterward, Maria emerged alongside Kanata, noticing his flustered look and querying their peculiar interaction. Since evening neared, Maria proposed coming back residence jointly, concluding their eventful date throughout the metropolis. While strolling alongside him, Maria complained teasingly, wishing Kanata had invited her initial rather much away. The disgraced aristocrat obsessed over revenge, refusing duty whilst directing blame towards Kanata. Elsewhere, Maria discovered Kanata lived inside the metropolis, details that sparked unforeseen curiosity and curiosity. Throughout his transmission, Kanata pondered if his statements genuinely carried peculiar impact throughout the realm. To entertain watchers, he imagined possessing tremendous power and inquired how everybody would respond. Promptly, multiple audience proposed extreme loyalty, promising service, protection, and unquestioning backing towards Kanata. Recognizing these responses sounded alarming, Kanata chuckled anxiously and clarified everything had been harmless humor. Afterward, he reflected on supportive notes, appreciating basic conversations and encouragement from his rising audience. Motivated by other creators, Kanata intended handheld transmissions, wishing basic travel shows would entertain watchers. Throughout the transmission, Maria sent affectionate donations, rendering Kanata flustered whilst reacting prior everybody. The subsequent dawn, Kanata regretted encouraging these responses and pondered why exhaustion felt overwhelming. At school, peers queried gossip encircling broadcaster, promptly drawing Kanata into uncomfortable focus. Their conversation shifted towards Aguila, whilst Kanata attended silently and avoided disclosing personal secrets. Whilst peers reviewed broadcaster, Kanata contemplated disclosing the reality, but fretted Noon would believe him. Afterward, he inspected watcher remarks cautiously and understood sure responses might expose his concealed persona. Curiosity about the impersonator persisted, still Kanata centered on evading focus from aristocrat pupils. Closeby, Maria observed Saintes acting peculiar, although the youthful girl rejected concerns with assurance. Abruptly, Kanata sensed something significant approaching and strengthened his resolve to prove the reality. Aguila complained about disbelief from peers whilst Kanata contrasted fake accounts against broadcasters' genuine fame. Following classes concluded, Kanata disguised himself and resolved uncovering the impersonator required direct investigation. Concealed close by, he overheard Aguila raging about commoners receiving focus, whilst aristocrats lost impact. Subsequent Aguila further, Kanata discovered greed inspired everything, since stealing broadcasters' fame pledged fortune. Maria neared afterward and ridiculed Aguila's foolish ambitions, whilst Kanata identified the scheme's weakness. Whilst discussing Aguila's circumstance, Kanata accidentally discovered both women respected broadcaster and pursued his transmissions. Maria confessed she relished broadcaster's content, surprising Kanata following discovering additional loyal supporter close by. Talking with sincere respect, Maria clarified broadcaster's tone comforted her throughout exhausting duties at chapel. Kanata verified Maria's persona, then attended silently whilst both women proceeded praising broadcaster lacking restraint. Worried by their fixation, Kanata observed Maria observing broadcaster intently and querying his rising impact. Kanata felt reassured following learning both Maria and Saintes respected broadcaster, although neither knew his persona. When Maria reviewed broadcaster's deeds, she confessed she never minded them and respected his intentions. Maria clarified that betrayal and sabotage deserve condemnation, disclosing formidable principles beneath her composed personality. Inquired about Aguila, Kanata preferred reform over punishment, assuming mistakes mattered fewer than tomorrow decisions. Prior anyone grasped the circumstance, Aguila disappeared lacking warning, rendering Kanata and the women stunned. Alfana sensed a sinister presence close by, causing worry as Kanata and the people scanned for Aguila. Meanwhile, Aguila encountered a frightening fiend aristocrat who promptly queried if he was broadcaster. The fiend's servant insisted broadcaster could never be a fraud, rendering Aguila scared and speechless consumed by fixation. The fiend accused Aguila of stealing her beloved broadcaster's persona and standing. Whilst Kanata's team pondered where Aguila vanished, the Saintess sensed difficulty and readied herself. Whilst discussing fiends and latest incidents, Kanata abruptly sensed threat approaching and disrupted the dialogue. Reacting initial, Kanata hurried ahead bearing both women resolved to shield them from potential threats. The supposed fiend emerged calmly, but Maria and Alfana readied themselves whilst guarding Kanata. Aguila shortly emerged alongside the visitor, clarifying the misunderstanding and disclosing no hostile intentions. Following overhearing the account, Kanata understood hostility had disappeared, enabling everybody to lower their guard. The fiend aristocrat disclosed numerous fiends respected broadcaster, surprising Kanata with their unforeseen loyalty. Overhearing broadcaster united mortals and fiends, Maria and Alfana grew still further impressed by him. Kanata joked about sorcery talent whilst the fiend aristocrat observed similarities between him and broadcaster. Maria reflected on broadcaster's enigmatic skills, questioning why still fiends contemplated his strength exceptional. With tensions resolved, Maria concluded the conversation and verified no harsher punishment awaited Aguila. Prior rendering, the fiend aristocrat commended Alfana's compassion, then left peacefully following the peculiar encounter. Maria proceeded towards government offices to record everything, whilst Kanata and Alfana stayed beyond wary from non-stop chaos. Kanata relaxed alongside Alfana, who appeared reluctant about saying something. Assembling courage, Alfana appreciated Kanata for guarding everybody. Although he rejected his deeds humbly, gripping his palms softly, Alfana summoned Kanata wonderful, rendering him speechless as her emotions surfaced. The puzzled fiend aristocrat regained consciousness, identified Lord Broadcaster, and frantically begged Kanata for help. Accepting duty, Aguila confessed his lies publicly and exposed each crime committed by his household. Multiple days afterward, Kanata reflected on latest incidents prior a enigmatic lady neared him. The lovely stranger shyly asked a tour guide, rendering Kanata inquisitive about her persona. Whilst exploring the metropolis jointly, Kanata observed townspeople staring at the enigmatic lady accompanying him. The lady respected each site about city, disclosing genuine fascination with common places and customs. Following overhearing Kanata's compliment, she labored concealing her embarrassment whilst proceeding their pleasant walk jointly. Kanata proposed to show concealed locations, oblivious his casual compassion influenced her further profoundly. Arriving a scenic overlook, the lady queried why anyone would want similar beauty ruined. Observing her intently from afar, Kanata sensed something peculiar about the enigmatic lady regardless appearances. Following noticing her pointed ears, Kanata straightforwardly queried if she genuinely belonged among mortals. Instead than denying anything, the lady chuckled publicly and confessed her disguise had entirely faltered. Her joyful response verified Kanata's suspicion, disclosing she was not mortal regardless journeying unnoticed. Aunt Solitary, she proclaimed the location perfect prior promising to reveal her real persona. The enigmatic lady abandoned her disguise, disclosing herself as Shrouza, a fiend whose presence stunned Kanata. Following introductions concluded, Kanata shared his name. Whilst Shrouza appeared pleased learning it straightforwardly, Shrouza isolated their surroundings with sorcery, ensuring merely Kanata could witness her real look. Inquisitive about his beliefs, Shrouza inquired Kanata's opinion concerning fiends and humanity's connection. Kanata replied earnestly that harmony mattered greatest, assuming both races endured equally throughout conflicts. Shrouza sensed exceptional energy inside Kanata, comparing his strength against common mortals with rising curiosity. Though astonished by her observations, Kanata discovered fiends could normally perceive mystical energy encircling people. Incapable to measure his limits accurately, Shrouza embraced Kanata's account and concluded her examination. Their conversation shifted towards cooperation, where Shruza expressed hope mortals and fiends could coexist peacefully, Kanata backed her vision regardless difficulties forward, encouraging Shruza with assurance about tomorrow understanding. Whilst gripping palms with Shruza, Kanata observed her cold touch still felt she resembled common individuals. Smiling softly, Shruza noted a broadcaster whose ideals matched Kanata's hopes for lasting harmony. She confessed growing a loyal fan since that streamer's notes had altered her outlook entirely. Astonished by her enthusiasm, Kanata inquired if the famous broadcaster held impact across fiend community. Shruza clarified numerous fiends previously pursued him, rendering Kanata stunned by the unforeseen revelation. Prior rendering, Shruza keenly invited Kanata to visit anew, wishing they could spend further period jointly. Subsequent their pledge to meet anew, Shruza came back residence, whilst Kanata observed her departure. Elsewhere, Kanata stayed entirely oblivious that Shruza's real persona carried tremendous importance among fiends. Rearward at residence, Kanata completed streaming early, advising watchers to rest and take care. Sensing weary from guiding visitors throughout city, he rapidly dropped asleep following coming back residence. Just when harmony appeared sure, Shruza emerged within his chamber, observing the sleeping Kanata. A hooded lady neared Crow in a concealed corridor and asked an assassination. Recalling a troublesome incident, she presented detailed files about the target, an aristocrat whose deeds influenced Maria and Kanata. Yet bitter over public humiliation, the lady pursued revenge whilst Crow inspected the documents and embraced confident in Crow's skills. The lady left, assuming the mission would proceed lacking complications. Crow accessed the metropolis, noticed the surroundings from above, and commenced assembling details about the target one period afterward. Crow examined the target and found numerous good deeds, causing unforeseen hesitation about the mission. Following overhearing accusations about drug trafficking, Crow understood abandoning the assignment was unachievable regardless rising doubts. Whilst observing, Crow recalled Broadcaster's impact, which offered aim throughout difficult moments. Crow identified similarities between herself and Broadcaster, forming a one-sided bond through his transmissions. Pondering about Broadcaster anew, Crow scanned for fresh labor opportunities, oblivious her emotions had deepened considerably. Whilst checking fresh notes, Crow attended to Broadcaster anew. His statements grew her greatest comfort. Throughout the transmission, Broadcaster reviewed killers. Crow reacted, astonished by the unforeseen subject matter. Crow reflected on her present employer and assignment, recognizing the client possessed detailed knowledge about killers. Though she grasped assassination brought suffering, Crow viewed killers as tools exploited by fearful employers. Recalling elderly stories she relished, Crow confessed killers appeared fascinating, regardless identifying their perilous reality. Whilst observing Broadcaster's transmission, Crow attended as watchers condemned killers and queried their morality. Crow understood her respect had become fondness, comparing her emotions towards Broadcaster with loyalty towards a lord. Arriving the target's residence at evening, Crow observed an open window and readied herself for entry. As Crow shifted within, she encountered Broadcaster, who emerged straightforwardly prior her gaze. Identifying Broadcaster, Crow froze in confusion, whilst he informally proceeded readying for his transmission. At instant, Crow found Kanata and Broadcaster were the identical individual, rendering her stunned. Observing Kanata continue streaming, Crow queried reality and pondered if she was experiencing a vision. Resolved to remain concealed, Crow noticed him, overcome by enthusiasm whilst witnessing her idol straightforwardly. Meanwhile, the client rested, assuming Crow was previously bearing out the assassination assignment successfully. Ignoring her mission, Crow relished observing Broadcaster's public transmission whilst hanging within his chamber. The story came back to the present date. Following guiding visitors, Kanata went to bed weary. Elsewhere, Crow stayed within Kanata's chamber lacking sleeping, observing him intently across the whole evening. When Crow disclosed herself, Kanata shrieked in shock, incapable to understand why an killer emerged abruptly. Panicking entirely, Kanata insisted responses, pointing at Crow whilst querying her persona and intentions. Instead than worrying about exposure, Crow felt delighted since Kanata eventually acknowledged her existence directly. With total assurance, Crow presented herself to Broadcaster and claimed she was a common individual. Kanata refused her account. Oblivious Crow's look would shortly disrupt his tranquil streaming existence. Attempting to stay composed, Kanata inquired for her persona. Crow insisted she was merely his loyal fan following introducing herself. As Mira, Crow disclosed she was the infamous killer summoned Crow. Kanata queried her odd deeds, but Crow repeatedly clarified everything happened since she respected him. Recognizing he triggered this circumstance, Kanata confessed duty. Crow ready to leave upon appeal. Misinterpreting him, Crow pulled her blade and announced she would perish, terrifying Kanata. Alarmed by Crow's response, Kanata halted her, insisting she put away the sword initial. Crow misunderstood his worry entirely, assuming she lacked value and deserved punishment for troubling Kanata. Observing her conduct, Kanata understood Crow would obey perilous orders, causing the circumstance much poorer. Overcome by exhaustion and confusion, Kanata labored to respond, identifying that Crow required grave aid attempting to prevent disaster. Kanata commanded Crow not to die, then altered the subject. Attempting to learn further about her, Kanata summoned Crow by Mira's name and queried her conduct. Mira clarified that Kanata knew her real persona, causing him the merely individual she believed. Doubting her claims, Kanata asked proof. Mira promptly proposed to remove anyone querying her persona. To demonstrate her skills, Mira disappeared instantly. Kanata scanned the chamber but found nothing. Following a brief instant, Mira disclosed herself straightforwardly prior Kanata, proving her outstanding concealment skills. Following accidental contact flustered them both. Mira confessed Kanata's touch solitary was sufficient to make her pleased. Kanata inquired why she stayed within his chamber, then grew worried about her mindset. Desiring reassurance, Kanata verified she no longer intended murder. Mira pledged she would protect him rather. The next date, Mira observed Kanata from beyond whilst reconsidering her mission against the assigned target. Elsewhere, the enraged client faced Crow for betrayal, but Mira reached cheerfully and apologized for remaining. Kanata cautioned Mira against needless killing. Regardless, trusting her protection, remaining alongside her stayed unsettling. A notification disrupted their conversation. Kanata verified his instrument, assuming the asked letters had reached. Rather, Kanata obtained accusations claiming broadcaster grew famous through mass murder, rendering him entirely bewildered. The anonymous note debated broadcasting required immense energy, suggesting innumerable individuals had sacrificed their existences. An enigmatic figure proceeded accusing broadcaster, querying how greatly suffering and how numerous deaths enabled his achievement. The threatening note proceeded, promising punishment for broadcaster and declaring his alleged crimes unforgivable. Stunned by the accusations, Kanata pondered how similar gossip had spread throughout the realm. Whilst Kanata shielded himself, Mira examined close-by hints, then grew preoccupied following discovering his scent. Kanata reflected on similar gossip from his earlier existence, recalling how assumptions often distorted public perception. Their grave conversation concluded abruptly when Kanata queried Mira's earlier deeds concerning his bed. Throughout Ataraxia, Kanata gained recognition as a broadcaster, and his rising fame reached individuals from numerous regions. Through his transmissions, innumerable audience embraced fresh concepts, while some developed deep respect for his beliefs. Multiple major changes pursued, including frailer discrimination, dismantled bandit guilds, tranquil agreements, and liberated slaves. Meanwhile, an enigmatic individual commenced broadcasting similar content, attracting focus from these drawn to impact. Near Rogius, energy emerged within the Senthi household, growing involved in the next unfolding incidents. Within a slave establishment, weary captives begged for mercy whilst their owner denounced them as useless burdens. Rikpa rejected complaints from his subordinates, insisting energy stayed useful regardless her troubled household background. Following reviewing latest labor outcomes, he commanded slaves to rest to avoid costly deaths. Frustration grew inside Rikpa as fresh anti-slavery policies restricted his trade and reduced accessible stock. Their conversation shifted towards a seized adventurer whilst guards observed from close by gripping cells. Whilst monitoring a healing chamber, Rikpa discovered Kanata generated sufficient energy from merely 5 streaming minutes. The startling figure rendered Rikpa speechless, compelling him to ask how anyone could challenge Kanata. Realization shortly shifted into outrage as he determined Kanata's impact exceeded common limits and expectations. Driven by envy, Rikpa commanded his supporters to investigate Kanata and expose each concealed private. Resolved to seize that strength, he intended his move prior the story came back to Kanata. Worried about appearances, Mira queried Kanata's decision whilst discussing the women who preceded subsequent him. Attempting to aid, Mira proposed progressively questionable solutions, although Kanata refused each perilous suggestion promptly. Her concepts grew still poorer when she informally proposed selling organs, rendering Kanata horrified. Recalling his peculiar supporters, Kanata understood numerous of them hardly qualified as common individuals. Requiring fresh air following that dialogue, Kanata departed for a walk, whilst Mira pursued beyond. Enjoying a tranquil evening walk, Kanata observed Mira subsequent beyond, then queried if she had become a stalker. Their rested instinct concluded when a transmission announcing shocking claims about broadcasters to audience everywhere. As Kanata attended, the speaker pledged disclosing concealed truths, accusing broadcasters of wrongdoing prior innumerable inquisitive watchers. Throughout Ataraxia, numerous citizens overheard the accusations and started contemplating if the enigmatic claims contained reality. Athena reacted with disbelief, then rage, recognizing somebody had publicly confronted Kanata's standing. Incapable to accept, Athena crushed her instrument, refusing to believe Kanata could commit similar deeds. Anise shared Athena's fury, convinced the accusations were untrue, whilst both readied responses against the broadcaster. Elsewhere, Mira understood Kanata had avoided disaster, fearing her response might have devastated everything close by. With tensions rising, Mira neared Kanata and asked a favor, understanding Rikba had provoked perilous individuals. With classes completed for the date, Haishin stayed on a bench questioning how he should spend the staying hours. Elsewhere, Maria and Alfana reviewed the show he transmissioned the earlier date, noticing that its impact had spread among numerous individuals. Appeals from inquisitive watchers proceeded rising. Still, the believed of teaching people his methods departed Haishin, seeking for a reasonable excuse. Among the secrets he carried, infinite energy remained above everything else, granting exceptional advantages that could place unwanted focus upon him. Instead than risk exposing that rare skill, Haishin chose a quiet path ahead, focusing on his transmissions rearward in his chamber. Haishin wished the circumstance about his show had settled down, oblivious that Mira had previously reached to record. Following assembling details, Mira handed her findings to Haishin, who embraced the documents whilst checking her condition. A brief look of thanks influenced Mira further than anticipated, causing her loyalty towards Haishin to grow still stronger than prior. Exhaustion eventually caught up with Mira, and she crumpled onto a bed, overcome by joy, following receiving recognition from Lord Broadcaster. Reviewing the collected details, Haishin found that an aristocrat from a remote nation emerged to be connected to latest incidents. The record disclosed a troubling circumstance, as Haishin discovered that his rising audience had organized themselves into a vast supporter team. Impressed by Mira's efficiency, Haishin understood she had uncovered significant particulars inside a short period and proposed to investigate further. Afterward that evening, he assigned Mira a fresh task, asking her to trace the suspicious show through her details network. Multiple documents described outrageous gossip portraying Haishin as a perilous manipulator, whilst followers were accused of being entirely brainwashed. Frustration surfaced as Haishin slammed his palm against the wall, irritated by accusations that disregarded both his deeds and intentions. Throughout the metropolis, responses to the gossip stayed divided, as some audience assumed the accusations whilst numerous people refused them. Strolling through campus, Haishin observed pupils discussing the controversy, rapidly recognizing that untrue stories about him had previously spread. Resting beneath a tree, he scanned for a practical solution, understanding that basic explanations would never erase similar misunderstandings. Unforeseen concept emerged when Haishin recalled he could show lacking, displaying his palms, forming opportunities to demonstrate the reality. His ideas came back to the entrance exam where a energy measuring orb had recorded outcomes that could backing his intended proof. Whilst refining his scheme, Haishin contemplated demonstrating his energy throughout a transmission, assuming visible proof could weaken the gossip encircling him. A fresh obstacle emerged when he recalled the measuring orb was expensive, causing it difficult for a common pupil to obtain. Not much away, Alfana and Maria misunderstood his troubled look, convincing themselves that Lord Broadcaster shared their mission against evil. Their sudden approach disrupted Haishin's ideas, and overhearing his title spoken aloud promptly caught him off guard. Turning towards the recognizable voices, Haishin found Alfana and Royal Maria remaining prior him, forming additional unforeseen complication. Caught off guard by their intense focus, Haishin halted Maria and Alfana prior they disclosed additional embarrassing misunderstanding about him. Recalling history encounters, the two women clarified that his deeds had guarded people, convincing them he was somebody trustworthy. Stepping ahead with assurance, Maria proposed her backing, insisting that individuals with impact should use their skills to aid people. With total assurance in their skills, Maria advanced ahead and proposed help, insisting that Haishin should allow them to share his burden. Talking from experience, Maria clarified that individuals born with rank, power, and impact carried a duty to backing people. Alfana reinforced that belief and inquired for his trust, wishing he would depend on them rather of struggling solitary. Following contemplating their sincerity, Haishin resolved they were reliable sufficient to aid and ready to reveal part of his circumstance, prior causing his appeal. Yet, Haishin apologized and reminded the pair that he was actually the famous broadcaster. The sudden confession departed Maria and Alfana speechless, as neither anticipated Haishin to reveal similar and unbelievable private about himself. Observing their stunned responses, Haishin promptly regretted his blunt approach and pondered if disclosing the reality had been a mistake. Instead than doubting him, Maria calmly clarified that multiple hints had previously connected Lord Kanata to the enigmatic broadcaster. One memory remained out clearly since Haishin had shown his wounded palm throughout a transmission shortly following they initial met. Alfana eventually pieced everything jointly and reacted with total shock, recognizing Lord Kanata and Lord Broadcaster had always been the identical individual. Following disclosing his persona, Haishin inquired Maria and Alfana to keep the private concealed, reassured that none else had found it. Rather of hesitating, the two women embraced his appeal, whilst Alfana advanced closer and reassured him with total sincerity. Gripping his palms softly, Alfana pledged that neither of them would ever betray his trust or create unnecessary issues. Looking at Haishin, Alfana clarified that understanding the reality merely strengthened her respect since she contemplated herself one of his fans. Maria agreed with that sentiment and urged him to continue streaming, assuming numerous audience yet required the courage and comfort he supplied. Maria refused formal treatment, insisting that Haishin stop calling her royal and interact with her the identical way he treated Alfana. Remaining confidently alongside Alfana, Maria proclaimed that both of them were his allies and would backing whatever help he required. Their unwavering loyalty reminded Haishin that neither girl had exposed his persona, regardless understanding one of his greatest secrets. Still, whilst identifying their trustworthiness, Haishin observed their conduct felt strangely intense, rendering him unsure how to respond. As the dialogue proceeded, Maria and Alfana held his palms lacking hesitation, causing Haishin worry about how people might interpret the scene. Noticing Haishin's concerns, Maria disclosed that she had previously cast a spell, ensuring Noon Closeby could overhear their conversation. Once privacy was secured, Alfana plus Maria presented details about the gossip, confirming that the accusations were organized conspiracies. Drawing from her household's impact, Maria clarified that investigations had previously traced the source, although an enigmatic helper assisted the attempt. Reviewing the collected proof, she pointed out that no crimes matched the claims, regardless gossip portraying Lord Broadcaster as perilous. Maria then disclosed the conclusion reached by multiple leaders who doubted Haishin possessed exceptional energy or an unknown streaming instrument. Leaning against Haishin lacking hesitation, Maria clarified that innumerable followers were previously laboring to stop the gossip circulating about him. Overhearing how numerous individuals believed Lord Broadcaster, Haishin grew further resolved to obviate his name through his personal attempts. Following obtaining their focus, Haishin started outlining his strategy whilst Maria and Alfana attended intently lacking querying his intentions. The initial step required obtaining the energy measuring orb, a guarded school artifact typically kept secured and inaccessible to common pupils. Clarifying his objective further, Haishin disclosed that he required the orb's recorded outcomes to resolve the controversy encircling him. Instead than objecting, Maria and Alfana promptly proposed their power, promising to secure permission and accept duty for the appeal. With an obvious course established, Haishin and his followers ready to challenge the gossip, setting the stage for a decisive confrontation. With the preparations total, Haishin stated that there would be no show that date, choosing rather to focus on tomorrow's scheme. Following confirming each detail, Maria and Alfana embraced their assigned roles, whilst Haishin set the operation to begin the subsequent evening. At evening, Alfana reached at Maria's chamber, clearly bothered by an inquiry that had stayed unresolved since earlier. The conversation rapidly shifted towards Haishin's private persona, prompting Maria to wonder if Alfana had previously known the reality. Grabbing her companion in disbelief, Maria reacted with shock following learning that Alfana had stayed oblivious of Lord Broadcaster's persona until now. Overcome by the revelation, Maria entirely lost her composure, whilst Alfana labored to compose her progressively frantic responses. Incapable to contain her enthusiasm, Maria yelled that her respected idol was actually her classmate, causing chaos across the chamber. Following the damage was repaired, Alfana confessed she had observed similarities prior, particularly since Haishin's mannerisms always felt recognizable. The dialogue abruptly shifted direction when Alfana proposed employing tomorrow meetings to make Lord Kanata notice Maria's emotions. That unforeseen advice formed a fresh issue, rendering Maria entirely preoccupied as she grew obsessed with choosing how to address him. Maria's fantasies spiraled entirely beyond control, prompting her to form absurd conclusions that kept Alfana struggling to correct them. Instead than accepting the remarks seriously, Alfana chuckled at Maria's daydreams while silently worrying these ideas might cause difficulty afterward. Rising unusually grave, Alfana cautioned Maria not to confuse Lord Kanata with Lord Broadcaster whenever they interacted at school. The warning carried extra weight since Alfana recalled multiple reckless incidents from Maria's childhood that demonstrated her poor judgment. Prior to concluding the conversation, Alfana urged Maria to think cautiously, reminding her that merely a few individuals knew Haishin's private persona. Following calming down, Alfana pointed out that understanding Haishin's private placed them forward of common fans and closer to him. Meanwhile, multiple audience observed the missing transmission, although merely a handful actually knew the real persona beyond Broadcaster. Motivated by that realization, Maria vowed to backing Haishin from beyond the scenes and protect his private whenever essential. Alfana agreed promptly, assuming that these entrusted with the reality should act responsibly instead than seek personal recognition. Looking at them now, it grew obvious that Maria and Alfana had grown beyond basic fans and become believed companions. Joining palms with renewed determination, Maria and Alfana pledged to backing Lord Kanata, jointly strengthening the bond they had formed. What started as cooperation slowly grew into genuine bond, as the royal and saintess united beyond a shared objective. Their tranquil agreement lasted merely moments prior both women commenced competing over who held the closest place in Kanata's spirit. The rivalry escalated so rapidly that still they identified how possessive they sounded, forcing an uncomfortable retreat from their claims. As the operation neared, Alfana proposed observing Lord Broadcaster's archived transmissions jointly, assuming it would boost morale prior tomorrow. Maria promptly approved the concept, arguing that using the evening worrying would accomplish nothing contrasted to enjoying his content. Their enthusiasm rapidly transformed the assembling into a competition, as both women confidently confronted each other over favorite transmissions. Moments afterward, the conversation shifted towards Lord Broadcaster himself, and the pair publicly addressed their emotions lacking embarrassment. Prior long, Maria and Alfana yelled their fondness for Lord Broadcaster throughout the evening, abandoning any attempt to hide it. Following discussing tomorrow's operation, Kanata came back residence, resolved to prepare thoroughly for the unique show and obvious his name. Whilst reviewing the obstacles forward, he understood in common pupil could not solve everything solitary and started seeking for dependable help. Prior long, Mira emerged at his side and accompanied him through the metropolis, offering guidance whilst leading him towards a helpful contact. Thanks to Mira's connections, Kanata met a skilled adult whose services were required, enabling multiple significant preparations to progress greatly faster. As the encountering period neared, the required gear and arrangements came jointly, rendering Kanata hopeful that tomorrow's show would succeed. Requiring a custom outfit prior the intended show, Kanata sought Mira's aid, and she promptly directed him towards reliable craftsmen. Hours passed as they crossed the metropolis jointly, assembling supplies and touring shops until merely a short period stayed. Upon arriving the encountering location, Kanata found Maria's chosen venue and pondered if similar and remarkable place could genuinely labor. Following inspecting the completed gear and last preparations, he felt reassured, although multiple significant issues yet required focus. Elsewhere, Alfana and Maria labored with nervous anticipation, insisting on assisting regardless the risks encircling Kanata's concealed persona. Throughout their conversation, Kanata proposed disclosing himself, but Alfana promptly found a flaw that could expose his persona. Instead than accepting the risk, Alfana proposed her private villa as a safer location and pledged stronger protection. To explain her assurance, she disclosed that a unique barrier encircled the estate and influenced anyone close by. According to Alfana, the barrier diverted focus from guarded areas, causing observers ignore particulars they would typically notice. Urged by the account, Kanata understood the villa could secure the show, whilst Alfana readied improvements prior to tomorrow's incident. Though Alfana declined to reveal the chapel's private technique, she proposed mastering the barrier herself prior to tomorrow's show. Overhearing that scheme, both Alfana and Maria insisted on accompanying Kanata, arguing their presence stayed essential for achievement. Following entering the villa, Kanata observed odd distortions about the barrier, then understood the women had never genuinely departed. Elsewhere, Crow cheerfully pledged proceeded backing from within the villa, demonstrating loyalty that matched her loyal standing. Meanwhile, Mira wished Kanata good luck whilst he readied for the transmission, understanding the decisive instant had eventually reached. Whilst numerous fiends queried Broadcaster's intentions and contemplated him perilous, Mira shielded his character, assuming his deeds deserved trust instead than suspicion. As evening reached within the villa, Alfana summoned Kanata ahead, signaling that the long-awaited show preparation phase had formally begun. Remaining prior unfamiliar gear, Kanata urged himself to enjoy the challenge, regardless nerves encircling history's initial live transmission attempt. Meanwhile, a rival broadcaster assembled followers and launched a hostile show resolved to expose Broadcaster prior his rising impact expanded further. Subsequent the transmission's unsealing, watchers throughout distinct regions reacted with shock as unforeseen details spread swiftly through innumerable devices. At crucial instant, Kanata emerged on screen, confidently greeting audience and transforming the incident into a legendary performance. As believers observe with enthusiasm, Broadcaster seized control of the narrative, marking the starting of a fresh chapter for everybody. Enthusiasm swept through Ataraxia as Broadcaster emerged prior innumerable watchers in his signature mask, drawing focus with his enigmatic presence. Instead than presenting common entertainment, he dedicated the transmission to addressing widespread accusations, claiming his activities were connected to mass murders. Seated inside his castle, a suspicious aristocrat observed the show intently whilst Broadcaster condemned these, who denounced people lacking proof. As the investigation proceeded, exhaustion grew visible on Broadcaster's visage. Still so, loyal supporters remained firm and shielded him. Rearward at the fortress, preparations for disclosing the reality reached their last stage, rendering watchers eager to witness the outcome. Following disclosing unforeseen helpers from afar, broadcaster presented them to the audience, rendering multiple loyal supporters noticeably unsettled and puzzled. Remaining prior the camera, Maria Ataraxis and Alphana presented themselves as broadcaster's followers, wishing their testimony would strengthen his defense. To demonstrate their trust, Alphana cast a spell affecting close-by watchers, directing their focus towards broadcaster's statements and deeds. The enchantment rapidly altered public responses. Puzzled remarks vanished, backing increased, and broadcaster labored to manage the overwhelming response. Mutual way, the aristocrat seeking for broadcaster experienced odd mental interference, locating his ideas clouded whilst memories grew difficult to grasp. With the audience observing intently, broadcaster presented the next stage of his defense and presented a mystical orb designed to measure energy. Following clarifying the instrument, he bravely claimed his energy supply was infinite, insisting each transmission could be powered lacking help. Though the demonstration sounded convincing, concern stayed. Some observers debated critics could dismiss the outcome as additional cautiously arranged trick. Maria Ataraxis plus Alphana proposed a solution, assuming their presence throughout the test would remove doubts and strengthen credibility. As tension filled the chamber, broadcaster ready to activate the orb. Close-by watchers fixed their focus on the coming proof. As broadcaster poured energy into the orb, its color shifted wildly between gold and black, surprising still Maria Ataraxis and Alphana. Instead than arriving a measurable limit, the orb endured unachievable amounts of energy, rendering witnesses stunned by the phenomenon unfolding moments afterward. The overloaded orb started glowing with rainbow colors prior rising into the air, entirely defying normal expectations. Incapable to contain the energy any longer, the orb drifted through the fortress and fled beyond, alarming everybody present faced with the unforeseen disaster. Broadcaster rapidly asked help from Maria Ataraxis and Alphana prior the runaway orb disappeared. Chasing the runaway orb through the fortress, broadcaster and his companions observed in disbelief as it abruptly altered direction anew. Throughout Rogias, innumerable watchers observed odd lights beyond their windows. Confusion spread swiftly as everybody glanced towards the heavens. While some citizens reacted with dread, people respected the sight. The floating orb proceeded, painting the evening with radiant colors. Assembled on a balcony, broadcaster, Maria Ataraxis, and Alphana noticed the spectacle overhead, comparing the glowing phenomenon to an aurora. Following examining the orb, Alphana determined that broadcaster's overflowing energy had fled and transformed into the magnificent display above. The miraculous aurora spread throughout multiple nations, proving broadcaster's limitless energy whilst forming a phenomenon unknown across Ataraxia. Observing the odd lights cover the heavens, citizens interpreted the spectacle as a divine sign, causing broadcaster's original argument to backfire. While celebrations erupted among followers, the aristocrat declined to accept defeat and scanned for additional account beyond the incident. Within the fortress, broadcaster attended in disbelief as individuals credited him with controlling the skies, rendering Maria Ataraxis delighted. By the subsequent date, stories of the miracle had spread everywhere, attracting still larger anticipation for broadcaster's next transmission. Resting solitary following the incident, broadcaster reflected on his sudden fame, appreciating the backing whilst rising progressively weary. Across the metropolis, thrilled fans proceeded discussing the miraculous aurora, preventing broadcaster from enjoying proper rest throughout his breaks. Overhearing individuals describe the phenomenon as a divine miracle, he labored to understand why everybody credited him for it. Elsewhere, inquisitive pupils encircled Alphana, keenly asking about her connection with broadcaster and the incidents beyond the transmission. Not much away, Maria Ataraxis faced a similar circumstance as crowds insisted particulars about broadcaster and everything happening backstage. As classes resumed, broadcaster ready to return to common pupil existence whilst contemplating how he could correctly repay Maria and Alphana. Rendering the school grounds, he glanced ahead to eventually resting. Close by, fans and critics proceeded arguing about his rising fame. Pondering on latest incidents, broadcaster understood jealousy and resentment among Senthi's aristocrats had fueled numerous accusations directed against him. According to Maria Ataraxis, the royal knights afterward found proof at Rikpa's residence and compelled him to confess. Stripped of his fortune and impact prior imprisonment, Rikpa crumpled in defeat, delivering the controversy encircling broadcaster to an end. Following misplacing everything, Rikpa refused the punishment awaiting him and proposed an apology. Although his statements carried little weight, details afterward disclosed that Alphana and her allies had located Rikpa beforehand, exposing his deeds long prior the knights reached. Strolling through the school grounds, Kanata reflected on the incident and resolved to teach watchers larger caution and judgment. Regardless arriving at tranquil conclusion, he blamed himself for escalating incidents and contemplated handling tomorrow transmissions with larger care. Prior coming back residence, Kanata encountered Alphana, who observed his troubled look and grew worried about his tomorrow streaming schemes. Reassuring Alphana, Kanata pledged to continue streaming regardless latest troubles, wishing both his audience and companions could enjoy themselves. Relief emerged on Alphana's visage following overhearing his decision. Her worries faded, replaced by thanks for Kanata's determination. Observing him leave, Alphana reflected on their bond and quietly vowed to backing Kanata still further from then onward. Coming back to his chamber, Kanata anticipated a tranquil evening. Rather, he found Mira remaining within and requesting his help. Mira disclosed her decision to retire from laboring as the crow, marking the starting of a fresh chapter in her existence. Whilst discussing Mira's tomorrow, Kanata attended with worry as she described her schemes following rendering her former position beyond. Checking public responses online, Kanata found gossip claiming the crow's disappearance was connected to broadcaster, forming additional potential headache. Afterward that date, Maria Ataraxia came back from labor and scanned for Kanata, eager to spend period with him. The reunion grew chaotic when Mira proclaimed herself Kanata's personal bodyguard, rendering Maria bewildered by the announcement. Refusing to surrender, Maria debated that she would be a much superior protector, turning the circumstance into an unforeseen rivalry. Approaching the school grounds, Kana observed peculiar commotion close by and pondered if Kanata had become involved in additional circumstance. Curiosity guided Kana closer to the noise. Expecting to surprise Kanata throughout her visit, she silently noticed from afar. Upon encountering Mira for the initial period, Kana hesitated in confusion. Neither identified the other regardless sharing Kanata's circle. Prior long, Kanata found himself encircled anew as Mira and Maria Ataraxia proceeded competing over who should protect him. Though fresh complications kept appearing about him, broadcaster stayed resolved to pursue bigger goals and expand his transmissions further. Ignoring the chaos encircling him, Kanata set his sights on larger achievement, resolved to expand his impact and reach still further individuals. From above, an enigmatic observer observed Kanata's journey with approval, assuming his tomorrow would continue unfolding in remarkable directions. High inside the heavens, the watcher reflected on Kanata's progress and silently noticed the path stretching prior him. Meanwhile, Deity Isla pursued his activities with rising curiosity, amused by his creativity and eager to watch tomorrow's shows. Entirely weary following latest incidents, Kanata proceeded residence to prepare for broadcasting whilst multiple loyal women pursued beyond him. The instant his name was noted, Maria Ataraxia, Alphana, Mira, and Kana reacted at once, their focus fixed wholly on him. Oblivious of the rising fondness encircling him, Kanata strolled ahead towards fresh adventures whilst his supporters hurried following him enthusiastically. 7 day following the Aurora incident, Kanata reflected on his rising fame and started contemplating the value of his followers. Throughout encountering Maria Ataraxia and Alphana, clarified that numerous individuals stayed captivated by the miracle and proceeded subsequent him. Beyond common respect, artists throughout the nation formed paintings and products motivated by broadcaster, competing to showcase their loyalty. Maria Ataraxia and Alphana proposed selling related products to intrigued fans, assuming the project would strengthen backing for Kanata. Though astonished by the suggestion, Kanata appreciated their enthusiasm and felt fortunate to have similar dependable companions alongside him. Oblivious of the consequences, Kanata almost urged still larger loyalty from Maria Ataraxia and Alphana, placing himself in tomorrow threat. Elsewhere, conversation shifted towards feasible products concepts. Thrilled by the opportunity, Maria Ataraxia keenly imagined items fans would enjoy shortly afterward. News spread that a statue of deity Isla had mysteriously altered overnight, rendering everybody puzzled by the incident. Instead than viewing the incident as suspicious, numerous believers embraced it lacking inquiry, trusting Lord Broadcaster's involvement as sufficient account. As curiosity proceeded circulating, pupils assembled about Maria Ataraxia, questioning about the rising link between Broadcaster and the chapel. When Maria Ataraxia proposed additional concept concerning the chapel, Kanata promptly refused it, rendering her flustered and Alphana amused. Meanwhile, deity Isla proceeded producing broadcaster products with great enthusiasm, displaying no intention of slowing down anytime shortly. Afterward that date, Alphana informed Kanata that she had significant trade to handle and invited him to accompany her, retaining the particulars private. Alphana pledged everything would become obvious shortly, rendering Kanata inquisitive about her real intentions. Their outing was disrupted when Kana emerged lacking warning and keenly recommended touring a newly opened store close by, following locating Mira yet residing close by. Kanata queried how long she intended to remain about him, wishing for an obvious response, rather of causing difficulty throughout the accusations. Mira had guarded Kanata's persona, grateful he eventually acknowledged her attempts. Though she pledged to find labor and become independent, Mira showed little curiosity in rendering Kanata's side anytime shortly. Flustered by his worry, Mira grew emotional when Kanata proposed encouragement, rendering her profoundly touched by his compassion. Their dialogue proceeded through the metropolis until Kanata observed a recognizable constructing, delivering them closer to Kanata's office. Arriving at Kanata's office, Kanata found her busy with customers. Still so, she gladly welcomed him following their latest separation. Identifying each other from an earlier encounter, Kana and Mira exchanged introductions whilst Kanata awkwardly observed the unforeseen encountering. As their dialogue proceeded, the two women appeared to understand one additional surprisingly well, rendering Kanata puzzled by their responses. Desiring to change the atmosphere, Kanata invited them to lunch. Both embraced promptly and pursued him to a close-by restaurant. Throughout the dinner, Kana talked about her daily routine and coworkers whilst expressing amazement at the expensive meal Kanata commanded. The conversation shifted when Kana disclosed she had recently shared a dinner with Maria Ataraxia and Alfana, surprising Kanata considerably. Regarding 6 days earlier, Kana met Maria and Alfana, sharing meals, conversations, and experiences that slowly developed into a close bond. Whilst clarifying their rising link, Kana disclosed schemes for a backing team dedicated to broadcaster, causing Kanata to choke instantly. With obvious pride, she confessed the association stayed unofficial. Still, she previously contemplated herself the third member inside its ranks. Kanata queried if Kana too counted herself among his watchers, fretted by where the conversation was heading. Prior he could recover, Kana noted products, concepts, and fan club schemes, rendering Kanata horrified by their escalating loyalty and enthusiasm. Stretching out her palm, Kana confessed that broadcaster's statements saved her when she required guidance greatest, causing him the individual she cherished above everybody else. Elsewhere, Mira confessed she overslept and missed the assembling, rendering Kanata stunned following discovering the backing team existed. As Mira wandered away to wash up, Kanata stayed frozen in disbelief, yet attempting to process everything he had discovered. Lacking warning, Kana wrapped herself about Kanata and proposed to become his initial follower, dispatching him straight into panic. The assembling determined on a pleasant note, with everybody expressing thanks for the dinner prior, heading residents satisfied and joyful. Though innumerable inquiries lingered in Kanata's thoughts concerning Mira and the people, he resolved tonight would remain free from complications and obligations. At evening, Alfana disclosed herself as the founder of Broadcaster's backing team, welcoming attendees whilst presenting herself with striking assurance. Throughout the encountering, Maria clarified that their objective involved forming conditions where Lord Broadcaster could continue rising. Retaining her recruitment scheme selective for now, Alfana noted that merely believed insiders would participate prior additional members entered afterward. Alfana detected an unfamiliar presence, observing the assembling through sorcery, identifying that the intruder possessed peculiar capabilities and skill. Following detecting the concealed observer, the team observed in surprise as Maria emerged to challenge the intruder's skills and intentions. Emerging from concealment, Mira bravely asked membership alongside Kana, whilst additional participant courteously inquired permission to join regardless modest qualifications. Recognition spread throughout the chamber as everybody understood the newcomers were connected to latest incidents, prompting enthusiasm and immediate acceptance. Lacking hesitation, Alfana approved their participation, expressing enthusiasm about cooperating jointly whilst reaffirming their shared dedication towards backing Lord Broadcaster. Moments afterward, each member united beyond the identical declaration, repeating their loyalty to Lord Broadcaster with synchronized determination and energy. Observing from above, the deity amused herself by imagining tomorrow chapter titles whilst observing Broadcaster's rising impact and widening circle of supporters. Elsewhere, oblivious of the backing association forming about him, Kanata rested throughout his date off and relished a tranquil wash. Whilst reviewing Watcher remarks throughout his show, Kanata confessed that both the royal and the scientist matched his ideal type notably well. His declaration triggered chaos among single watchers, who rejoiced following overhearing him praise the two respected women. Elsewhere, Maria and Alfana reacted with overwhelming enthusiasm, fixating on the fact that Kanata had summoned them his type. Afterward, Kanata assembled pupils for combat practice and clarified that their enchanted uniforms could weaken hostile sorcery and reduce injuries. To conclude the lesson, he presented a badge-based training match where victory depended on destroying a rival's badge prior misplacing one's personal. 2 unwilling pupils were selected for the initial demonstration match, and it concluded almost when one was overcome and his badge smashed. Observing the one-sided outcome, Kanata reflected that forcing individuals into fights usually led to outcomes precisely like that. A cocky upperclassman then confronted Kanata, urged by peers who desired to see the peasant put in his place. The challenger launched a mighty fire spell, but the attack disappeared prior arriving Kanata, shocking both the spectators and the referee. Overall, those pages establish the rules of the training exercise while setting up a confrontation that demonstrates Kanata's anti-sorcery gear and skills. Kanata reflected on the duel and confessed his defensive wall originated from knowledge recalled from his earlier existence. Formed throughout fight, drawing inspiration via fantasy manga, Kanata shaped a mystical barrier, redirected the incoming attack, and readied his response. The came-back spell crashed into the aristocrat pupil, shattering his badge and concluding the match. Prior spectators grasped what happened. The overcame pupil dropped onto the ground with scorched clothing, whilst Kanata commended his control and identified the student's considerable talent. Regardless securing victory, Kanata observed aristocrat prejudice stayed formidable, prompting him to stay cautious and prevent unnecessary conflicts. Following the match concluded, Kanata reassured himself that Maria and Alfana yet backed him. Easing concerns about hostility from other pupils, coming back residents, Kanata contemplated eating an early dinner, but somebody surprisingly summoned out to him prior he could relax. Multiple peers encircled Kanata, commended his performance, and insisted he accompany them, rendering him little chance to refuse. The team shielded Kanata from criticism, reminding people about his victory, whilst he observed the rising argument with worry. Kanata surrendered when the pupils confronted him anew, enabling Maria and Alfana to lead him away from difficulty. Kanata appreciated his peers for defending him and wished to leave peacefully, but additional pupil blocked his path prior departure. As Kanata attempted to understand the circumstance, everybody except him abruptly froze in place, forming an odd and unsettling scene. Kanata understood that each individual about him had become frozen in place, rendering him solitary and confirming that something peculiar had happened. Hashimita emerged alongside Kanata and condemned the encircling pupils, insisting that common individuals should never treat him with disrespect. Following acknowledging the existence of Kanata's supporters, Hashimita observed the close-by pupils and judged their deeds towards him unfavorably. Refusing to overlook the circumstance, Hashimita proclaimed that the offenders deserved punishment and ready to remove them from Kanata's presence. Employing her enigmatic skill, Hashimita removed one target and rejoiced the outcome, whilst Kanata observed the unforeseen incident unfold. Assuming it would save period and attempt, Hashimita resolved to erase each staying offender at once, contemplating the task annoying and repetitive. When Kanata protested, the deity disclosed a shocking reality, admitting that she was the identical being he summoned years ago. Throughout their dialogue, Hashimita clarified that erased individuals were insignificant to her since fresh replacements could appear whenever essential. Rejecting that philosophy, Kanata debated that existences were not interchangeable objects, insisting that convenience never justified removing individuals from existence. With unwavering assurance, Hashimita claimed still a ruined realm could be revived through recreation. Whilst Kanata stayed troubled by her reasoning, Kana confronted Hashimita's deeds, arguing that freezing period and removing unwanted individuals crafted her resemble a monster instead than a compassionate deity. Clarifying his beliefs, Kanata confessed that Noon was favored by everybody, still accepting differences stayed a significant part of common existence. Though some supporters had behaved poorly towards him, Kanata acknowledged the issue lacking hatred and proceeded attempting to understand. Following overhearing his perspective, Hashimita started understanding Kanata's character superior and understood his values differed from her personal worldview. Desiring proof rather of assumptions, Hashimita embraced Kanata to test his response, then disclosed that her earlier threats were merely hypothetical. Yet puzzled by her conduct, Kanata queried why a deity would wear clothing featuring her personal image. Locating the decision surprisingly odd, lacking any embarrassment, Hashimita clarified that she directly designed the shirt and still placed the identical image upon her statue. As their dialogue proceeded, Hashimita disclosed herself as Kanata's oldest supporter, admitting she had pursued and observed his transmissions since starting. Recalling earlier days, she noted that Kanata lacked enthusiasm at initial and still abandoned his small audience throughout transmissions. Sometimes, laughing at Kanata's response, Hashimita proclaimed that if a deity like herself appeared peculiar, then the realm shared that issue. Flustered by Kanata's criticism, Hashimita confessed Noon had ever commented on her look that way, causing the peculiar deity surprisingly self-conscious. Whilst discussing the shirts, Hashimita informally disclosed that thousands were previously being produced, rendering Kanata stunned by her immense dedication. As her period in the mortal realm concluded, Hashimita clarified that remaining longer risked damaging reality's balance, forcing her departure. Prior disappearing entirely, she urged Kanata to keep rising his audience, expressing assurance that numerous further followers would follow. With a last farewell, Hashimita disappeared from sight, rendering Kanata stunned whilst the encircling pupils proceeded causing chaos about him. Following Hashimita vanish, Kanata remained frozen in disbelief, convinced the whole experience was absurd and much beyond anything contemplated normal. 3 days afterward, Kanata came back to school and reflected on latest incidents, yet astonished that period had resumed lacking account. Elsewhere, the pupils previously targeted abruptly freaked and apologized, acting as although they recalled a frightening experience Noon grasped. Observing the odd change, Kanata doubted Hashimita had affected them somehow, although he lacked proof and queried if he imagined it. Rearward at his show, Kanata stayed puzzled by latest incidents, questioning why everybody treated him regardless, receiving no account. Meanwhile, Hashimita reflected on her rising attachment to Kanata, admitting that observing his activities had become meaningful still for a deity. Additional deity called Isla emerged and observed Hashimita's peculiar curiosity, querying why she proceeded paying similar close focus to humanity. Instead than denying it, Hashimita publicly confessed her worry, disclosing that Kanata's response crafted her worry she had crossed a line. In the end, she confessed that the erased pupils had actually been revived afterward, although she deliberately kept that reality from Kanata. Following a fierce confrontation, Alphana drove rearward a perilous foe threatening the mortal realm. Still, the rival fled prior she could finish him. Identifying the rising crisis, Mira urged immediate deed and asked Lucia's presence whilst confirming that Alphana had endured the fight safe. Elsewhere, Kanata spent period pondering on latest incidents, questioning if the enigmatic deity would appear anew regardless his unsure memories. Two revived women stayed close alongside Kanata, rendering him uncomfortable whilst they treated common bond with surprising intensity. Incapable to understand their conduct, the women labored to match Kanata's pace, querying if similar attachment was contemplated normal among mortals. Isla presented fresh products featuring Kanata's image, clarifying that production was progressing well while showcasing badges and bags readied for followers. Inspecting the samples, Kanata feared his image would become renowned everywhere, although Isla assured him that imitators could never equal his appeal. Kanata encountered Mira and Alphana jointly, causing confusion prior the team exchanged farewells and pledged to meet anew shortly. When Mira presented herself, Kanata discovered she belonged among his followers, whilst people speculated about her background lacking, pressing further inquiries. Though uncertainty stayed concerning Mira's origins, everybody embraced her presence and Kanata adjusted to additional peculiar supporter, joining his circle. Whilst Kanata observed, Mira and Alphana rejoiced their acceptance jointly, reassuring each other that their identities stayed unchanged regardless latest revelations. Seeking clarification, Kanata inquired about Mira's peculiar skills, and Alphana clarified that opposing energy weakened spells, lacking canceling their effects. Following overhearing the account, Kanata determined Mira possessed fewer strength than Alphana. Although her skills stayed helpful against sure rivals, conversations shifted towards Mira's household, and Kanata discovered she came from royalty, including siblings who had become intrigued in encountering him. Astonished, Mira reacted with embarrassment as people disclosed her relatives had reviewed Kanata often and wished for introductions. Pondering on latest incidents, Kanata resolved he should repay the backing people had given him, comparing their circumstance to friendships inside his household. Overhearing his ideas, Alphana expressed thanks for his compassion. Whilst Mira attended and reacted with visible jealousy, Mira insisted focus for herself, embraced candy from Kanata, then stormed away whilst insisting she would return residence early. Meanwhile, in the metropolis, Lucia worked at her computer and apologized to watchers, proceeding her duties regardless interruptions from these about her. Throughout an interspecies encountering, officials reviewed broadcaster products, agreeing they respected Kanata but querying if similar gifts suited formal diplomatic gatherings. Throughout an interspecies encountering, weary participants labored to concentrate, repeatedly drifting towards discussions about Kanata's shows rather of significant diplomatic matters. As focus wandered further, representatives replied inquiries about Kanata, rendering multiple leaders worried that the assembling was misplacing focus. Elsewhere, Lucia succeeded the encountering whilst Alphana endured her responsibilities, wishing she could pursue Lega rather of staying trapped indoors. Afterward, Kanata obtained a donation note from an unknown supporter, rendering him puzzled and unsure about the sender's persona. Following reviewing watchers' remarks, Kanata found an elderly donor had contributed funds, whilst Mira and Alphana queried odd gossip circulating online. Following noticing suspicious donations appearing beyond normal shows, Mira and Alphana concluded the transmission and started investigating the odd records. Whilst Kanata labored to understand the circumstance, Mira reached at his residence uninvited, declaring herself his bodyguard and causing further confusion. Elsewhere, leaders throughout distinct nations reviewed the rising fraud issue, fearing widespread chaos if the impersonators proceeded deceiving followers everywhere. Resolved to solve the crisis, Lucia asked cooperation from monarch Ataraxia, promising to uncover the culprit responsible for abusing Kanata's standing. Setting aside elderly conflicts, mortals and fiends agreed to labor jointly, wishing to capture Lega and restore stability across the mortal realm. A fellow called Max rejoiced following collecting large amounts of donated funds, sensing amaze that impersonating Kanata had brought similar effortless rewards. Counting his earnings with satisfaction, Max convinced himself that pretending familiarity with Kanata was harmless since followers had believed him. Following calculating the profits, he justified his deeds further, assuming the scheme scarcely qualified as fraud since some funds yet reached Kanata. Coming back residence that evening, Max readied to enjoy his achievement, merely to discover an enigmatic lady remaining beyond his residence. The stranger presented herself, rendering Max stunned as she disclosed peculiar curiosity in the individual responsible for the donations. Assuming the enigmatic lady respected him, Max pursued her advances with enthusiasm, oblivious she previously knew his persona and concealed intentions. Drawing close with a perilous smile, Mira disclosed her real longing, rendering Max stunned when she claimed she desired his spirit. Prior he grasped her meaning, Mira trapped Max inside a frightening illusion, forcing him to experience punishment pondering his greed and deception. A passing knight found the unconscious victim, praising Mira's skill whilst noticing the odd sweetness lingering across the area. When queried about Max's condition, Mira clarified she had placed him into a vision where his stolen guilt consumed him. Mira astonished the knight by admitting fiends now pursued Kanata's example, preferring cooperation over violence while seeking tranquil ties with mortals. Following overhearing her account, the knight embraced Mira's sincerity and appreciated the succubus for assisting resolve the scammer incident. Elsewhere, Mira disclosed she could locate Kanata whenever essential through energy detection, although she avoided doing so out of respect. Prior celebrating further, Mira reminded everybody that the larger threat stayed unresolved since the perilous fiend Lega yet fled capture. Her warning shifted the dialogue, prompting the team to acknowledge that defeating the scammer solved little, lacking stopping Lega. Records disclosed Lega had researched energy concealment techniques and commenced a rebellion, forming fears that latest harmony between mortals and fiends could collapse. Whilst discussing, Mira clarified Lega stayed wounded and inactive, causing the present instant their best opportunity to investigate. Shortly, Lucia sent detailed records covering each settlement in Ataraxia, requesting widespread searches whilst guarding the metropolis herself. Thanks to coordinated attempts, authorities strengthened security measures throughout nations, resolved the scammer case, and readied responses against tomorrow crimes. Though proud of completing the mission, Mira glanced ahead to praise from Kanata, wishing her achievements would earn recognition. Following finishing the investigation, Kanata appreciated Mira for her backing, rendering the fiend girl delighted when he softly commended her attempts. Afterward that evening, Kanata inquired Mira to aid test and concept for his streaming career, requesting her honest opinion afterward. Resolved to impress him, Mira neared with assurance. Still, her former killer instincts almost surfaced and ruined the instant entirely. Recognizing how close she came to causing a frightening look, Mira freaked and fretted that her conduct might alarm Kanata. Elsewhere, Kanata waited beyond. Questioning if the experiment succeeded, oblivious Mira stayed within, struggling with embarrassment and enthusiasm. With the scamming incident settled, Haishin reached at the royal castle, where monarch Atheus and Maria welcomed him as an honored guest. Atheus expressed satisfaction with Haishin's latest accomplishments, whilst Maria's younger siblings encircled the broadcaster with visible enthusiasm. The assembling expanded when Maria's father and mother accessed the chamber, prompting Haishin to realize that this encountering carried larger importance. Having met Maria's younger siblings, Haishin came to understand further about her household, whilst these closest to her proceeded observing him. Caught between Maria and additional fan, Haishin found himself overcome by their focus as close-by attendants noticed the peculiar circumstance. Whilst discussing tomorrow's schemes with Maria's household, Haishin clarified that encountering individuals would aid him recruit staff and expand his activities. Throughout the chamber, Maria's younger siblings protested when Haishin obtained greatest of the focus, whilst Maria observed the scene with delight. Inquisitive about the energetic children, Haishin presented himself and discovered they were Maria's siblings Ars and Fion. Regardless their uncomfortable start, amused by their enthusiasm, Haishin commended both children, causing Ars plus Fion to beam with pride under his focus. Aunt's introductions determined, the siblings inquired to appear on Haishin's shows, rendering the monarch responsible for restoring order. Eager to participate, Ars and Fion abruptly stated the start of a show, drawing thrilled responses from everybody assembled within. The unforeseen performance overcome multiple spectators at once, forcing monarch Atheus to backing Maria whilst people labored to remain conscious. Unlike the people, Maria endured the enthusiasm and determined that Haishin's followers had not still entirely reached at the fortress. Following the commotion settled, Haishin appreciated Kanata for earlier help and recalled an significant matter overlooked throughout the scamming incident. Beyond the castle, crowds assembled about merchant stalls as anticipation spread across the metropolis for the release of restricted products. Following reviewing the overwhelming demand, Haishin discovered that the products lottery had attracted much further applicants than anyone initially anticipated. To guarantee a fair selection process, chapel members, royal knights, and fiends were assigned to handle the immense volume of entries. Throughout the conversation, Haishin confessed the project would have faced grave delays if the latest scamming incident had stayed unresolved. Worried about feasible unrest among loyal followers, Haishin imagined frustrated fans causing chaos following overhearing that product sales were postponed. Beyond the venue, organizers stated strict rules for attendees, while sales in the fiend realm would begin following Lega's capture. With sales formally underway, staff cautiously verified winning documents, whilst Kanata cautioned participants that forged claims would be found promptly. Throughout the venue, effective winners rejoiced receiving restricted products, whilst innumerable followers expressed disbelief, following eventually obtaining the coveted products. Observing the enthusiasm unfold, Haishin understood the products carried remarkable impact, rendering Kanata amused by the overwhelming responses about them. A short whilst afterward, Alphana neared Haishin with a mischievous look and brought up gossip worrying his activities with Mira. Whilst discussing latest incidents, Alphana neared Haishin with a teasing smile and hinted that Mira had shared something interesting. Lacking offering him period to recover, Alphana disclosed that Mira had spoken confidently about their period jointly, rendering Haishin profoundly flustered. Pressed for a response, Haishin reluctantly confessed Alphana's suspicion was correct, whilst she silently regretted enabling Mira to reveal everything. The confession hit Alphana harder than anticipated, causing tears to appear as she queried if she had fallen beyond Mira. Following overhearing Mira's description, Alphana labored to control her emotions, then insisted an account from Kanata with an unsettling smile. Seeking confirmation, Alphana queried Haishin about Mira's claims, and he confessed that they had indeed spent period jointly. Instead, then sensing stunned by the revelation itself, Alphana and Mira's followers grew upset since they had been excluded. Sensing an opportunity to compose the circumstance, Haishin pledged to spend period with them as well, producing immediate confusion. Though her frustration eased somewhat, Alphana confessed that her real disappointment came via not being the initial to share that experience. Elsewhere, Mira tried to justify her emotions through comparisons and compatibility, although her flustered look disclosed rising insecurity beneath her arguments. Accepting Haishin's proposal, Alphana and Mira agreed to meet him afterward that evening. Although both emerged astonished by the invitation, following they left, Haishin came back his focus to trade matters and felt reassured that product sales were progressing smoothly. Meanwhile, Maria and Alphana trained jointly in a hot spring, resolved to improve themselves prior facing tomorrow challenges. Regardless her worries, Alphana obtained encouragement from Maria, who insisted that assurance and determination mattered further than dread. Afterward, Haishin appreciated both women for their attempts, causing Maria and Alphana to react with visible embarrassment and quiet satisfaction. Afterward that evening, Haishin assembled Mira and Alphana in his chamber, announcing a fresh experiment that would require their help. When the unfamiliar term puzzled everybody present, Haishin clarified that ASMR was streaming content designed to create unique sensory experiences. To demonstrate the concept, Haishin described employing sorcery to alter his tone, enabling audience to experience tingling sensations straightforwardly. Though initially suspicious of the concept, Mira embraced his account following learning that Maria and Alphana had motivated the experiment. Readying for the transmission, Haishin asked Mira's terminal identification number and disclosed his intention to create a show exclusively for her. As the initial trial proceeded, Haishin understood the outcomes were disappointing, prompting him to adjust the experiment and search for stronger responses. A sudden change in the mystical effects startled everybody present, whilst Mira and Alphana labored to understand what had just happened. Attempting to describe the sensation, Mira clarified that Haishin's altered tone appeared to reach her thoughts, rendering her unsettled. To gather further reliable data, Haishin proceeded the test regardless their responses, causing both women to become progressively flustered and overcome. Once the experiment determined, Haishin reflected on feasible improvements and contemplated incorporating popular ASMR themes into tomorrow transmissions. Examining the women responses, Haishin determined that the experiment had achieved its aim, although the outcomes emerged stronger than anticipated. Desiring additional data, Haishin inquired Mira if she desired him to say anything specific, and she promptly proposed a suggestion. Subsequent her appeal, Haishin appreciated Mira for backing the experiment, causing her to become noticeably further emotional than prior. Employing an elderly script as reference, Haishin proceeded the test and cautiously talked straightforwardly to Mira, Maria, and Alphana in turn. The last lines overcome the women, forcing Haishin to admit that ASMR possessed unforeseen appeal, regardless requiring further refinement. Recovering from the experiment, Mira and Alphana volunteered to assist tomorrow tests, insisting that much further data would be required. Agreeing with their assessment, Haishin embraced their backing and determined that developing effective ASMR transmissions would require considerable period away from the people. Mira confessed that the experiment had overcome her, rendering still her mystical defenses difficult to maintain. Crumpled beneath the evening heavens, she pondered if similar mighty transmissions should ever reach the public, regardless, locating the experience irresistible. Elsewhere, Haitian reflected on the unforeseen achievement of his products campaign and resolved to send part of his earnings residents. Oblivious of the approaching threat, Haitian relished his accomplishments whilst a fiend ready to attack his hometown inside days. Whilst laboring in the fields alongside other villagers, Meza completed her task for the date prior, noticing a recognizable figure close by. Following approaching the visitor, she discovered that the traveler was Lega, whose joyful attitude rapidly eased the uncomfortable introduction. Throughout their dialogue, Lega inquired about her recovery, and Meza clarified that the injuries she endured were almost healed. Recalling her desperate escape from the bandits, Meza reflected on the distressing experience, whilst talking truthfully about her history. Regardless everything that had happened, Meza confessed that encountering Kanata and the villagers had brought joy rearward into her existence. Whilst talking with Lega, Meza confessed that ideas of Kanata often came back to her thoughts, causing worry for his tomorrow. Following rendering the dialogue beyond, Lega's joyful look disappeared, disclosing intense hatred as she silently judged humanity's worth. Much from the settlement celebration, Lega healed her power and blamed Shruza for forcing her into an inconvenient circumstance. As evening neared, she resolved to destroy everybody connected to the settlement, viewing both the villagers and Kanata as obstacles. Oblivious of the threat drawing closer, the villagers assembled to celebrate Lega's recovery whilst a deadly threat ready to strike. Throughout the celebration, the villagers chuckled and chatted jointly until a towering figure abruptly emerged, turning the joyful atmosphere silent. Lacking warning, Lega disclosed her real nature and stated her intention to devour everybody present, shocking the terrified villagers. As panic spread throughout the assembling, Meza advanced ahead with her farming tool and commanded the children to escape. Refusing to abandon the villagers, Meza confronted Lega straightforwardly and readied herself for a fight she could not win. Prior Lega could strike, Lucia abruptly emerged alongside Meza, surprising the fiend who had faltered to detect her presence. Just as Meza readied to visage Lega solitary, Lucia reached and intercepted the attack, disclosing herself to be a succubus. Identifying Meza as Kanata's mother, Lega ridiculed her link to him and proclaimed that she would die lacking aim. Prior Lega could finish her attack, a mighty strike crashed into the arena and knocked the fiend away from Meza. Following Lucia exposed her concealed technique, Shruza advanced onto the arena, promptly drawing Lega's focus and changing the circumstance. Remaining prior everybody, Shruza calmly addressed Lega, forcing the fiend to recognize that a much further perilous rival had reached. The dialogue concluded abruptly when Shruza accused Lega of attempting to murder Kanata's parents, igniting overwhelming fury inside her. Overhearing the accusation, Lega entirely abandoned her composure and swore revenge, declaring that Shruza's deeds could never be forgiven, as murderous intent filled the arena. Lucia determined that Lega's fate was sealed whilst the clash escalated beyond her control. Sure that his trap had succeeded, Shruza observed until Lucia exposed the reality, disclosing that the whole circumstance was merely an illusion. Following uncovering the deception, Lucia departed Lega's matter to her companion and shifted her full focus towards confronting Shruza else, where Shruza understood he had been transported into a remote area of the fiend realm, much away from Rajan and civilization. Convinced Noon could interfere, he ridiculed Lucia's deeds and relied on the barrier, assuming the isolated prison guaranteed his safety. To Lucia's surprise, Shruza displayed a frightening transformation as his energy expanded, arriving a level much beyond prior. Instead than retreating, Shruza unveiled his real strength and launched a devastating attack, claiming his power had increased almost 1,000-fold. Facing the overwhelming display, Lucia shielded humanity's value, arguing that fiends should recognize the compassion, cooperation, and backing mortals share. As the debate proceeded, Lucia disclosed her deeper wish, wishing fiends and mortals could coexist peacefully and ultimately build families jointly. Overhearing similar and unforeseen proposal, Shruza remained speechless whilst Lucia bravely insisted that interspecies marriage should become feasible someday. Beyond her passionate argument, Lucia eventually exposed her personal motivation, dreaming that one date she would have Kanata's child. Still following overhearing Lucia's vision of coexistence, Shruza refused her ideals, insisting fiends had spent centuries accepting pleasure in slaughtering mortals. Lacking hesitation, Lucia charged ahead and hit Shruza, dedicating her attack to Kanata and the villagers whose hometown endured destruction. Driven by rage and loyalty, Lucia unleashed additional barrage, offering her fists on behalf of Broadcaster and their imagined tomorrow household. Though Shruza labored to move, he stayed puzzled by Lucia's fixation, prompting her to explain Kanata's importance directly. With total assurance, Lucia proclaimed Kanata was unquestionably her tomorrow's spouse, rendering Shruza stunned whilst additional crushing blow neared. Throughout the fight, Lucia delivered a crushing attack whilst mocking Shruza's inexperience, exposing how little he grasped mortal relationships and fondness. Once the clash concluded, villagers resumed rebuilding their homes, and a worried companion neared Lucia to check her condition. Regardless claiming victory, Lucia abruptly crumpled from exhaustion, disclosing that Shruza's attacks had departed her much further wounded than anticipated. Following bearing the burden of leadership for days lacking rest, Lucia's form eventually reached its limit and compelled her unconscious. Some period afterward, Lucia awakened in a bed encircled by recognizable faces, puzzled about her location but reassured to be safe. Upon waking in the settlement, Lucia met Meza, who appreciated her for guarding Kanata and assisting defend the settlement. Caught off guard by the thanks, Lucia resolved the circumstance could no longer remain concealed and ready to explain everything. As Meza expressed appreciation for her deeds, Lucia discovered the villagers viewed the present Fiend Lord much further favorably. Throughout the dialogue, Lucia found she had been sleeping in Kanata's chamber, rendering her flustered and entirely stunned. Moments afterward, Meza disclosed the outfit belonged to Kanata, clarifying it was a spare costume stored at his household residence. Following confirming Kanata's streaming persona, Lucia and Shruza understood merely a handful of individuals knew the reality and agreed to protect it. Identifying how significant the private was, the two fiends pledged cooperation, assuming concealing Kanata's activities would spare him difficulty. Whilst attending to Meza's story, Lucia observed missing clothes and started questioning if Kanata had privately readied something beforehand. The conversation shortly shifted towards Kanata's preferences, rendering Lucia and Shruza speechless, following overhearing Meza's unforeseen remarks about appearances. Embarrassment spread throughout the chamber as Meza jokingly imagined Kanata's tomorrow household, causing both fiend women to freeze in shock. Incapable to forget these statements, the flustered fiend pair exchanged heated responses, their imaginations sprinting wild as Meza's teasing proceeded. Elsewhere, Lucia and Shruza privately promoted Kanata's streaming activities, concealing their identities whilst close-by mortals stayed oblivious of their motives. That evening, a peculiar light abruptly emerged above the metropolis, drawing focus throughout the metropolis and interrupting the common atmosphere. Much from the celebration, Kanata wandered through Randall lacking recognizing his hometown had endured disaster, whilst odd lights filled the evening heavens. On additional date, Kanata and his peers obtained an invitation to visit Randall, prompting the team to consider a short journey jointly. Stepping ahead confidently, Maria asked everybody join the outing, clarifying that Alfana had commended Kanata's acceptance of individuals regardless of rank. Following causing preparations and arranging schedules, Kanata and the people left the subsequent dawn, journeying towards Randall by wyvern carriage. Upon arriving in the city, the team explored local attractions whilst discussing helpful sorcery items. Although Alfana stayed beyond in the metropolis, throughout their sightseeing, Kanata noted assisting Alfana experience further freedom someday, causing Maria to misinterpret his worry as romance. Upon arriving at the estate, Kanata and his peers were welcomed by Athena Faratoa, the Duke's daughter whose rank impressed everybody. Athena escorted Maria towards the estate for a scheduled encountering, whilst the staying pupils readied for their personal activities. As the team reviewed their schemes, Kanata chose to study sorcery items, prompting his peers to scull meanwhile about city. Observing his companions leave jointly, Kanata reflected on youthful friendships and relationships prior proceeding his separate schemes through the quarter. Following wandering the artisan quarter for quite some period, Kanata grew fatigued and resolved to rest while seeking for his destination. Whilst resting solitary in the artisan quarter, Kanata observed a girl and initially assumed she was merely pondering about romance. Moments afterward, he found the girl was an obsessed fan of Lord Broadcaster, talking to a handmade doll resembling him. Following approaching her, Kanata discovered she formed the doll herself, and the dialogue disclosed she was one of his fans. Aya overlooked Pin exposed the girl's link to Lord Broadcaster, forcing Kanata to continue the uncomfortable conversation, regardless his rising worry. As their talk proceeded, the fan keenly queried Kanata about latest news encircling Lord Broadcaster, the Royal, and the Scientess. Attending to the girl's peculiar respect for Lord Broadcaster, Kanata felt uneasy since her loyalty reminded him of Mira's overwhelming enthusiasm. Gripping the handmade doll, the girl disclosed that Lord Streamer's statements had once rescued her existence throughout a difficult period. Caught off guard by her statement, Kanata labored to remember assisting anyone in similar a significant way through his transmissions. Whilst guiding her towards the artisan quarter, Kanata urged her story, wishing to understand how their link had begun months earlier. As the account proceeded, Kanata contrasted her conduct with multiple eccentric fans he had encountered prior. Still, she yet appeared outstanding. Following thanking Kanata for his company, Lisa presented herself correctly, then left whilst expressing thanks and promising to discuss Lord Broadcaster anew. Once Lisa departed, Kanata eventually reached the artisan quarter, reassured to continue his original objective. Following the unforeseen encounter exploring the market, he observed stores separating aristocrats from commoners, disclosing that Randall yet labored with class discrimination issues. Observing the unfair treatment firsthand, Kanata attended to merchants justify their practices by claiming commoners produced lower-quality products plus services. Disgusted by the blatant prejudice, Kanata denounced the discriminatory trade and queried why social rank mattered further than individual skill. While strolling, Kanata witnessed a merchant insulting additional craftsmen's items, dismissing years of attempt as worthless trash. Incapable to tolerate the disrespect, Kanata hit the offender and proclaimed that anything formed with genuine dedication deserved recognition instead than ridicule. Following discovering the discarded flash drive's value, Kanata impressed close-by artisans, causing the hostile merchant to abandon his rage and proposal a nervous apology. With the clash settled, the flustered fellow hurried away from the quarter, whilst Kanata obtained grateful thanks from witnesses he scarcely recalled. A youthful artisan called Shido neared him, praising his deeds and introducing himself as both manager and craftsman. As their dialogue concluded, Kanata ready to continue exploring the metropolis, oblivious that this unforeseen encounter would shape tomorrow's incidents. Much beyond that common instant, the encountering between Kanata and Sid would ultimately become the starting of a partnership that altered everything. Following introducing himself, Shido welcomed Kanata, proposed tea, and expressed surprise that somebody from the metropolis had traveled so much solitary. Lisa waited beyond her shop, frustrated by the lack of customers, whilst privately wishing somebody would notice her handmade creations. Throughout their conversation, Shido confessed that surviving as an artisan was difficult, lacking aristocrat backing, wealthy connections, or widespread recognition. Regardless earning merely a modest income, Shido stayed resolved to continue his craft, refusing to abandon the path he had chosen. Overhearing these struggles, Kanata reflected on Shido's perseverance and understood the artisan faced still larger hardships than numerous other commoners. Clarifying his ambitions, Shido disclosed that he desired to create items everybody could enjoy, regardless of rank, fortune, or background. Yet his attempts often faltered since numerous inventions lacked compatibility with existing machinery, rendering customers puzzled and his workshop struggling. Still so, Shido presented multiple peculiar items, admitting his restricted talent whilst wishing Kanata might understand their potential value. Among the inventions, Kanata found earphones, a unfamiliar concept in that realm, and promptly queried why Shido had formed them. Following overhearing the account, Kanata understood the design was motivated by Lord Broadcaster, whose transmissions and tone had attracted loyal audience everywhere. When Shido clarified the earphone's aim, Kanata grasped the concept and understood the invention could deliver sound to audience. Following testing the instrument himself, Kanata verified that the audio quality stayed obvious, rendering Shido amazed by his quick adaptation. Attempting to explain the machinery, Kanata described principles similar to wireless connections, although his account merely puzzled the bewildered artisan. Once Kanata demonstrated the earphones further, Shido grew thrilled following overhearing remote sounds clearly and shifted additional step towards achieving his vision. Identifying their potential value, Kanata inquired to purchase multiple pairs, but his enthusiasm faded when he recalled his restricted funds. Whilst testing the earphones, Kanata observed the audio resembled sounds employed by Lord Broadcaster, rendering him astonished by the recognizable quality. Prior Kanata left, Shido proposed him a developed item, wishing the gifted inventor's latest creation would prove helpful someday. Though flustered by sure assumptions about Lord Broadcaster, Shido stayed grateful and proceeded discussing how greatly the broadcaster motivated him. As Kanata readied to leave, Shido confessed that Kanata's encouragement had revived his assurance and renewed his determination to keep forming. Their encountering concluded on a sincere note when Shido appreciated Kanata, whilst Kanata pledged to visit anew in the tomorrow. Meanwhile, a loyal auditor commended Kanata for his encouragement, oblivious that Lord Broadcaster and Kanata were actually the identical individual. Coming back to the present, Kanata observed fireworks illuminating the heavens and hurried rearward following being summoned by his remaining companions. Throughout dinner at Athena's estate, the team expressed thanks for the hospitality whilst Athena insisted that Royal Maria deserved the praise. As the dialogue proceeded, Kanata confessed his respect for Royal Maria's compassion, noting how she cared for individuals regardless of rank. Overhearing Kanata's compliment, Athena reacted with amusement, whilst Maria emerged flustered following discovering that they shared the identical opinion. Afterward that evening, Kanata presented Lisa to Maria and Athena, disclosing that she was a loyal fan of Lord Broadcaster. Intrigued by Lisa's link to the famous broadcaster, Maria keenly invited her to discuss various topics and share personal experiences, As the dialogue grew further rested, Maria proposed proceeding it throughout a wash, and the people rapidly agreed to join. Elsewhere, Kanata stayed in the boys' chamber, studying silently whilst questioning why the women appeared unusually intrigued in him. Throughout the wash assembling, Maria and the people reviewed Kanata extensively, rendering him entirely oblivious of the focus he was receiving. Afterward that evening, Kanata presented Lisa to Maria and Athena, disclosing that she was a loyal fan of Lord Broadcaster. Intrigued by Lisa's link to the famous broadcaster, Maria keenly invited her to discuss various topics and share personal experiences. As the dialogue grew further rested, Maria proposed proceeding it throughout a wash, and the people rapidly agreed to join. Elsewhere, Kanata stayed in the boys' chamber studying silently, whilst questioning why the women appeared unusually intrigued in him. Throughout the wash assembling, Maria and the people reviewed Kanata extensively, rendering him oblivious of the focus he was receiving. Rising from the water with a confident smile, Athena left to prepare her personal response, concealing schemes connected to a looming mystical threat. Following completing his duties for the evening, Kanata proceeded towards the wash merely to discover Maria remaining within for him. Filled with enthusiasm following their unforeseen reunion, Maria proposed discussing streaming jointly whilst accepting a tranquil stroll through the garden. Recalling their earlier encounter, Kanata declined the invitation since entering the wash stayed his immediate priority that evening. As Maria shifted away following accepting his refusal, guilt started weighing on Kanata, prompting him to reconsider everything. Throughout their preceded dialogue, Maria observed similarities with Lord Broadcaster, causing rising suspicion concerning Kanata's concealed persona. Recalling suggestions from earlier watchers, Kanata paid closer focus to his statements and deeds whilst using period alongside Maria. At the mention of Lord Broadcaster, Maria's enthusiasm intensified promptly, disclosing how profoundly his transmissions had affected her emotions. Regardless the lack of any scheduled show that evening, ideas of Lord Broadcaster proceeded, offering Maria comfort and encouragement. As their dialogue drew towards its conclusion, Kanata reflected on her loyalty and felt surprisingly pleased by her response. Further down the corridor, Lisa emerged alongside Athena, and their rested look proposed they had spent period bathing jointly. Whilst heading towards the wash to continue his unfinished record, Kanata encountered Maria and Athena, causing the circumstance surprisingly uncomfortable. Impressed by his grave attitude and dedication, Athena commended Kanata prior presenting a sudden dual appeal that caught him entirely off guard. Instead than accepting the challenge, Kanata scanned for excuses concerning rank and circumstances. Still, Athena declined to withdraw her demand. Witnessing Athena's rising curiosity, Maria's jealousy surfaced promptly, and she refused any possibility of rendering Kanata solitary. Under the moonlit heavens, the team accessed the inner garden where Lisa's absence shortly drew Kanata's focus and worry. Once everybody reached the garden, Athena clarified the duel's basic rules, whilst Kanata readied himself regardless, staying unsure. According to Athena's conditions, victory would belong to her if Kanata's protective badge fractured, surrendered, otherwise faltered enduring her attacks. Subsequent Maria's reluctant frequency to begin, Athena launched a mighty thrust promptly, wishing to overwhelm Kanata prior he reacted. Rather of retreating, Kanata formed a mystical shield and calmly endured Athena's relentless assault, forcing her attacks to fail. Assuming sorcery solitary crafted him vulnerable, Athena abandoned conventional tactics and abruptly closed the distance, initiating perilous palm-to-palm combat. Prior the confrontation escalated further, Kanata surrendered the match, prompting Maria to rush above plus check on him. Instead than discussing the outcome, Athena clarified that mystical barriers encircled the garden, preventing outsiders from overhearing disturbances. Focus shortly shifted towards security matters as Athena described her nation's schemes for mystical machines handling tomorrow crime prevention. Witnessing on her account, Athena disclosed additional devices concealed across the garden, demonstrating how the security system operated. Comparing the machinery with knowledge from his earlier existence, Kanata identified similarities and acknowledged the system's remarkable potential. To demonstrate its effectiveness, Athena activated one concealed instrument, causing multiple mystical mechanisms beneath the garden to respond. Moments afterward, Athena abruptly crumpled from exhaustion, rendering Kanata puzzled whilst Maria condemned her lack of physical endurance. As Kanata drifted asleep alongside her, Athena embraced him and teasingly contrasted the circumstance to one of Lord Streamer's transmissions. Following the duel concluded, Maria apologized for throwing Haishin down. Whilst gripping him close, her respect intensified and suspicion shifted into certainty. Maria inspected each detail she recalled. His look, form, proportions, and habits matched perfectly, rendering almost no chamber for doubt. As Haishin relaxed, Maria organized the proof. His limitless sorcery reserves and outstanding endurance convinced her he was Lord Broadcaster. Overcome by loyalty, Maria leaned closer and inhaled Haishin's scent, Her fixation deepened further as she relished each instant alongside him. Incapable to suppress her desires any longer, Maria climbed onto Haishin plus indulged herself, intending to take him somewhere private. Maria confessed her deeds had crossed proper limits. Still, her fixation stayed unchanged. She proceeded seeking for the individual she desired greatest. Athena, additional loyal auditor from Randall, neared the sleeping Haishin. Unlike the capital's supporters, her intelligence strengthened her perilous fondness. Meanwhile, a distinct fan reached with overwhelming enthusiasm. Driven by pure loyalty instead than cause, she hurried ahead lacking hesitation. Mira, a pupil from the royal school, emerged alongside Haishin whilst acting as temporary protection. She observed peculiar activity following observing the circumstance. Mira accused Maria of causing difficulty anew. The proof appeared obvious, particularly following witnessing Athena's deeds. Chaos welcomed Haishin the instant his gaze opened. Athena stated her conclusions and proposed an outrageous reward. Elsewhere, Mira studied the circumstance with a calmer perspective. Her observations matched Athena's findings, causing Haishin's importance difficult to dismiss. Instead than exposing his private, the loyal supporters reviewed ways to protect him. Their solution grew a concealed association disguised as a fan club. Overhearing that proposal, Mira showed curiosity. She still proposed overlooking the latest disturbance, if membership inside the team grew feasible. Neither Athena nor Maria welcomed the suggestion. Viewing each fan as a potential rival, they refused Mira's appeal and shielded their exclusive circle. Maria observed Athena and Mira crowd about the sleeping Haishin. Their enthusiasm disclosed how each follower had surrendered to fixation. Faced with their odd conduct, Mira issued a warning rather of starting additional fight. Still so, the people scarcely hid their intentions. Greatly afterward, Haishin awakened and labored to understand the circumstance. Athena's accidental trap had departed everybody asleep about him. Whilst discussing the incident, Kanata clarified why she was present. Her unforeseen look appeared like nothing further than coincidence. Away from Haishin's awareness, Athena and Mira relished a private dinner jointly. Elsewhere, both pondered how long their private could remain concealed. Athena reassessed the circumstance following encountering Haishin's followers. Identifying Mira's power and the group's impact, she postponed immediate deed. As the team strolled through the school, Athena clarified her preparations. Securing permission beforehand permitted her to remain close to Kanata. Near the dormitory, Maria apologized for earlier incidents, whilst people exchanged private remarks. Their whispers sparked curiosity among these remaining close by. Lacking greatly hesitation, Maria inquired permission to visit Lisa prior rendering. The appeal appeared calm and sufficient, so Noon objected. Upon arriving Lisa's chamber, Maria found the door stayed locked. Confusion spread when Kanata disclosed Lisa usually spent evenings. Meanwhile, inquiries spread through the team when Lisa's whereabouts grew inconsistent. Elsewhere, Kanata remembered Lisa's dread of insects, causing the circumstance stranger. Following seeking the school grounds, everybody assembled once further. Still security measures stayed untouched, rendering no obvious account beyond. Mira inspected multiple suspicious locations and found traces of unauthorized sorcery. Based on the proof, she determined Lisa had likely been abducted. Employing details from Crow's notes, the team recognized feasible suspects. A notorious offender association known for kidnappings grew their primary lead. Recognition hit Athena when she connected the hints jointly. Recognizing an elderly foe household might be involved. She readied for immediate deed. A concealed reality emerged when the team discovered Lisa's real persona. She belonged to the influential Clyde household from the Ilwa nation. Kanata remembered overhearing that Lisa had been disowned years earlier. Regardless misplacing her rank, somebody yet contemplated her worth targeting. While strolling, Athena inspected the mystery. The peculiar timing proposed motives beyond a basic kidnapping. Much from the school, a private ritual reached completion. Multiple cloaked figures rejoiced as preparations advanced under the moonlit heavens. Leading the operation, an elderly aristocrat disclosed his real intentions. Viewing Lisa as a disposable tool, he intended to use her for a forbidden mystical scheme. Bound inside an odd mystical instrument, Lisa stayed unconscious and defenseless. Dark energy assembled about her as the ceremony proceeded. With rising enthusiasm, the elderly aristocrat unveiled the last stage of his scheme. He intended to unleash a disaster able of threatening Haishin's realm. The instant Lisa's name surfaced anew, Athena's look hardened. A distressing memory came back, strengthening her determination to save Lisa. 10 minutes earlier, the team had queried why Lisa visited the main estate. Athena then disclosed a concealed reality about her history. According to Athena, the Clyde household privately constructed strength through offender activities. Oblivious of everything, Lisa had become additional victim. Raised for political marriage, Lisa spent her childhood serving her family's ambitions. Genuine fondness never mattered whilst her usefulness stayed intact. Following her engagement crumpled, the family's treatment grew much crueler. Refusing to spare, Lisa contacted Athena, who assisted her escape to safety. As the conversation proceeded, Athena proposed a disturbing possibility. Contemplating the family's mystical research, Lisa might have been chosen as a catalyst. An overlooked book Athena found throughout Lisa's rescue abruptly gained importance. Its contents proposed forbidden rituals connected to sacrificial mystical experiments. Recalling the family's public image, Athena remembered their concealed cruelty. Beyond aristocrat appearances, perilous emotions and ambitions had always existed. Combining each hint, Athena reconstructed the enemy's likely objective. Once their preparations concluded, Lisa's abduction could grant tremendous destructive strength. Instead than seeking political advantage, the Inclide household now pursued survival. Their collapsing impact pushed them towards desperate and reckless deeds. A fresh hint emerged when Mira noted Lisa's former fiancé. The aristocrat from the Xandard Empire had recently been assassinated under suspicious circumstances. That revelation triggered an unforeseen response from Haishin. Athena reminded everybody that the broken engagement had commenced since of him. Instead than denying it, Haishin embraced duty with embarrassment. His connection advice had urged Lisa to reconsider her tomorrow and decisions. Mira connected multiple overlooked particulars. Proof disclosed both families had engaged in offender dealings concealed from public view. Subsequent her rescue, Lisa's respect shifted towards a distinct figure. Grateful for her freedom, she started revering Lord Broadcaster as her hero. Recognizing the crisis had escalated beyond expectations, Athena promptly organized a rescue mission. Maps, horses, and soldiers were readied lacking delay. Regardless understanding Lisa for merely a short period, Haishin insisted on joining. Sensing partly responsible, he declined to remain beyond. Kanata volunteered as well, eager to contribute yet feasible. Elsewhere, Maria and Athena reacted with delight to Haishin's determination. Shortly afterward, the rescue party left under the evening heavens. Racing throughout the countryside, they hurried towards Lisa's doubted location. Throughout the journey, Mira analyzed the accessible details cautiously. Her reasoning proposed the kidnappers were yet concealing somewhere within the principality. Subsequent Kajiro's trail, Mira recognized multiple suspicious ruins scattered throughout the region. Her investigations steadily narrowed the kidnappers' feasible concealing places. Following reviewing innumerable locations in a single date, Mira eventually found a promising lead. The people observed with respect and disbelief. Guided by Mira's findings, the rescue team accessed a dense forest, shifting on foot. They pursued the trail with caution. Throughout the advance, Maria reflected on Lisa's emotions and circumstance. She assumed Lisa would want Lord Broadcaster to avoid blame. Instead than accepting guilt, Haishin attended as Maria proposed encouragement. Her statements reminded him to focus on saving Lisa initial. At last, the rescue team located the underground lair beneath the ruins. Enthusiasm surged through Haishin as Lisa's whereabouts grew obvious. The instant foes emerged. Kanata launched the initial strike lacking hesitation. Her sudden attack disrupted the kidnappers' schemes and exposed their position. Elsewhere, Haishin analyzed the arena and estimated the enemy's capabilities. Judging their mystical power, he readied an appropriate response. Haishin unleashed a mighty attack towards the underground corridor. The overwhelming blast smashed defenses and scattered multiple rivals. Meanwhile, Athena faced additional team of offenders straightforwardly. Her swift movements and fierce attacks departed the stunned bandits entirely incapable to respond. Lacking granting mercy, Athena proclaimed punishment harsher than death itself. Her fierce assault silenced the foe prior he could warn people. Abruptly, dozens of Kajiro members emerged from each direction. The rescue party found themselves encircled by a much larger force remaining alongside Maria and Mira. Athena issued a chilling warning. Anyone threatening Haishin or Lisa would visage the wrath of 3 loyal supporters. Whilst Athena, Maria, and Mira battled waves of killers, Kanata took a distinct route. She launched herself towards the foe headquarters deep inside the lair. A lookout sounded the emergency frequency. Panic spread as the offenders understood their location had been found. Lisa stayed bound and unconscious. Confident in his achievement, the mastermind assumed she would protect him following awakening. Instead than retreating, the elderly aristocrat readied for the next stage. Sure his supporters would delay the rescuers, he started assembling black sorcery. Prior his preparations could continue, Kanata burst into the chamber. Her sudden arrival disrupted the ritual site and compelled the stunned aristocrat. Bursting into the ritual chamber, Haishin faced the mastermind. His sudden look smashed the villain's assurance and disrupted the ceremony. Prior Haishin could act further, the aristocrat activated his last safeguard. Awakened by black sorcery, Lisa rose and obeyed his command. To everyone's surprise, the transformed Lisa assaulted the elderly aristocrat. Her deeds puzzled both Haishin and the mastermind alike. A horrifying reality shortly disclosed itself through Lisa's altered look. The consciousness sealed inside the forbidden spellbook had possessed her form. Identifying the imposter, Haishin refused its claims, lacking hesitation. The creature responded with hostility and launched a barrage of attacks. Witnessing Haishin cornered, Kanata accelerated throughout the arena, lacking hesitation. Her enhanced movement carried her towards the possessed Lisa. Though the foe controlled Lisa's form, Haishin declined to strike seriously. His hesitation formed an unsealing that the creature exploited. With frightening ease, the possessed Lisa overcome Haishin's defenses and launched additional attack. The relentless assault pushed him into threat. Recognizing the incoming strike would break through his protection, Haishin readied for impact. Still, his sorcery shield appeared incapable to endure. Just prior disaster hit, a deity abruptly emerged alongside him. Effortlessly blocking the attack, she scolded Kanata while saving Haishin once anew. The deity emerged unimpressed by Haishin's latest performance. Teasing him lacking restraint, she complained that growing predictable crafted him much fewer entertaining. Following overhearing Haishin's concerns, the deity disclosed a solution. Rather of battling, he required to reach Lisa's soul. To explain the circumstance, the deity described Lisa's condition. Her consciousness stayed asleep whilst a monster controlled her form. Lisa's spirit proceeded, resisting from inside regardless her imprisonment. That struggle weakened the creature's control and kept her living. With the account total, Haishin grasped his role in the fight. Merely statements directed towards Lisa's spirit could awaken her and reclaim her form. Clenching his fists, Haishin embraced duty for the disaster. Encircling Lisa, resolved to fix everything himself, he declined to rely on people. Observing his resolve, the deity expressed rare approval and ready to assist. Close by, a masked figure advanced ahead with assurance. Prior starting his attempt, Haishin obtained encouragement. Still, the deity cautioned that defeat would carry grave consequences. Facing the possessed Lisa, the masked Kanata abandoned formal speeches. Rather, he welcomed her and queried the odd circumstances encircling them. Instead than boasting about his achievements, Kanata appreciated Lisa and everybody backing him. His sincere statements grew the key to arriving her. Confusion disappeared as Lisa's real consciousness resurfaced. Identifying Kanata's tone, she responded with fondness, warmth, and recognizable loyalty. Awakened from possession, Lisa expressed overwhelming thanks towards Kanata. The emotional reunion verified that his gamble had succeeded. Within Lisa's subconscious realm, Kanata faced the monster controlling her form. Their clash marked the starting of a fight throughout two worlds. Disregarding the threat, Kanata encouraged Lisa to oppose the intruder, revealing her family's offenses mattered less than rescuing her. The monster replied, striking Lisa's sole representation throughout their mental struggle. Still so, Kanata declined to retreat from the confrontation. Deep inside her thoughts, Lisa's real self recalled what mattered greatest. Her determination centered on reclaiming her form, and overhearing Kanata's shows anew as Lisa battled rearward, the monster's stolen strength started slipping away. Recognizing the circumstance had reversed, it reacted with rising panic. Observing Lisa resist his impact, the monster grew alarmed and puzzled. Kanata's statements were arriving her much further effectively than anticipated. Seizing the unsealing form by Lisa's struggle, Mira urged Kanata to act. Elsewhere, the monster understood its overwhelming presence had begun fading. Kanata launched himself towards the foe and hit decisively. Retaining silent would accomplish nothing. Whilst Lisa stayed trapped, Kanata clarified his strategy with surprising assurance. By weakening Lisa's form, he reduced the monster's skill to retaliate. Instead than relying on power solitary, Kanata disclosed his private weapon. A recording of Mira's ASMR grew the unforeseen tool for awakening Lisa. Employing an ASMR recording as emotional ammunition, Kanata talked to Lisa's spirit. Each sincere word strengthened her fading resistance against possession. The creature observed the shift inside Lisa's subconscious landscape. Her resolve surged upward, endangering the control it had preserved. What started as a small response transformed into an overwhelming emotional flood. Lisa clung to Kanata as her suppressed emotions burst outward. Drawn by these sincere notes, Lisa embraced the odd, still comforting sensation. Elsewhere, the monster labored to understand the source of her power. Observing the circumstance, the masked Kanata expressed genuine surprise. He never anticipated his streaming tone to impact Lisa. The recording's effects intensified, rendering her overcome and incapable to move correctly. Elsewhere, Kanata proceeded replaying the note. Inside the mental realm, the monster tried additional method of control. Rather of threats, it tempted Lisa with ceaseless comfort and pleasure. Lisa twisted the monster's manipulation into something else. Her fixation centered on Kanata, strengthening resistance instead than weakening it. Observing the bizarre exchange unfold, Kanata confessed total confusion concerning the circumstance. Still so, Lisa's determination against the monster grew obvious. Following a fierce confrontation, Lisa proposed accepting a short break. The absurd proposal transformed a deadly fight into a casual dialogue. Throughout the odd lull and fight, the monster crafted an unforeseen appeal. Leaning close to Kanata, she inquired him to whisper a name. Since her memories stayed fragmented, the monster could not remember her personal persona. Kanata embraced the appeal and proposed help. Following contemplating multiple possibilities, she chose the name Pell. The basic act filled her with childlike enthusiasm and satisfaction. With a fresh name established, Pell proposed concluding their clash. Her demeanor softened, replacing hostility with peculiar friendliness and trust. Kanata responded with empathy towards Pell. Wishing to prevent tomorrow tragedies, he proposed understanding and dialogue rather. As odd emotions swirled through her spirit, Pell labored to understand them. The unfamiliar warmth burning within her carried a name, love. Kanata clarified that genuine fondness differs from basic respect or entertainment. Through sharing memories and emotions, Pell grasped what love meant. Pell emerged calmer than ever prior. Satisfaction replaced confusion as she readied to leave the arena. Instead than blaming Kanata for her defeat, Pell embraced the outcome. She confessed that her emotions for him had overcome everything else. Rearward in the physical realm, Pell's fading presence drew Kanata's focus. Their brief exchange carried the atmosphere of a quiet farewell. Alongside her existence fading away, Pell reassured Kanata that Lisa would recover. Though saddened by the farewell, she embraced her fate. Prior disappearing, Pell confessed that her emotions would remain forever. She urged Kanata to keep residing, streaming, and shifting ahead lacking regret. Their last goodbye carried unforeseen warmth instead than bitterness or despair. Calling him broadcaster one last period, Pell disappeared. Pondering on the ordeal, Kanata reached an amusing conclusion. Through an accidental combination of ASMR plus determination, he gained additional follower whilst resting in his arms. Lisa murmured sincere statements in her sleep. Still unconscious, she proceeded expressing thanks and respect towards Kanata. Flustered by Lisa's confession, Kanata attempted pretending he had not overheard it. Nevertheless, her sincere emotions departed a visible impression. With the fight eventually over, the team ready to reunite with everybody beyond. Under the moonlit heavens, they strolled towards a well-earned conclusion. Broadcaster and his companions reached where foe forces encircled the area. Following defeating the main threat, he entrusted the staying rivals to his allies. Lisa hurried ahead, guarded Kanata throughout the fierce struggle. She pushed herself beyond her limits to secure sufficient period for Broadcaster. Broadcaster found Lisa drained from her attempts. Witnessing her condition, he lifted her into his arms. Maria, Kanata, and the people assembled about Lisa following her return. Their worry faded when they verified she endured the perilous fight. Whilst Broadcaster bearing Lisa, the encircling women observed with bright expressions. Each of them wished to receive the identical treatment someday. Broadcaster entrusted the aftermath to Athena and the people whilst bearing Lisa. Though her condition stayed stable, he resolved she required treatment. A hooded figure clarified that Kanata stayed unrelated to the clash. To avoid unnecessary difficulty, he asked Kanata accompany them. Maria centered on the staying offenders and insisted their punishment following everything they triggered. Elsewhere, Athena reminded everybody to settle explanations. As the team strolled through the metropolis, Lisa pursued the hooded fellow with curiosity. His peculiar conduct crafted her feel inquisitive. Following confirming the circumstance had settled, Broadcaster summoned for Kanata, the team ready to leave jointly and return residence safely. Following the incident, Broadcaster inquired Athena to take care of Lisa whilst he handled the staying matters. Maria observed something recognizable about Kanata. Athena disclosed her ideas and stunned Maria with her bold response. Rather of denying it, she treated everything as a suggestion. Athena proceeded clarifying her concept. She proposed sharing what stayed, displaying peculiar enthusiasm and assurance. Maria embraced Athena's invitation and entered her side. The two rejoiced their rising link whilst thanking these who assisted rescue Lisa. Athena visited Lisa throughout her recovery and clarified the offender's circumstance. Though the threat had passed, legal consequences yet awaited them. Lisa reflected on the incident and declined to blame Athena Broadcaster or these who guarded her. She embraced duty herself. Overcome with emotion, Lisa shifted closer and embraced Athena. Regardless Athena's surprise, Lisa insisted she desired everybody to hear her emotions. Lisa expressed her thanks and appreciated Athena for rescuing her from threat. Athena attended whilst gripping her palms. As they proceeded talking, Lisa confessed she recalled little about the earlier evening. Still so, she felt a peculiar sense of fulfillment. Athena ready to leave and urged Lisa to rest. Prior departing, she observed Lisa fall asleep and recover. Athena spent a tranquil dawn pondering about the graduates and their upcoming departure. Prior witnessing them off, she desired further period jointly. Whilst checking her instrument, Athena found streamer's live transmission. The unforeseen look stunned her since she assumed he was resting. Recognizing broadcaster was broadcasting from within her estate, Athena leapt from her seat. She hurried through the halls to investigate. Maria and Lisa discovered about the transmission and complained that Athena kept the discovery private. Resolved to reach broadcaster initial, Athena sprinted towards Maria's chamber. Elsewhere, the people pursued beyond and declined to be departed out. Athena burst into the chamber and found multiple individuals sleeping jointly. She yelled in surprise whilst attempting to wake them. As Athena glanced about, she observed Kanata sleeping peacefully among the people. The unforeseen scene departed her puzzled and suspicious. Whilst checking the transmission instrument, Athena understood additional individual was streaming under streamer's name. Shock replaced her enthusiasm as the mystery deepened. A blonde girl awakened up following overhearing streamer's transmission and verified her instrument. The unforeseen show caught her focus prior sunrise. As she glanced about, she found Kanata sleeping alongside additional girl. The surprising sight departed her puzzled and desperate for responses. Elsewhere, streamer's transmission proceeded attracting focus throughout the metropolis. The rising audience included numerous loyal supporters who observed with enthusiasm. Athena reached and found the chamber in total chaos. Everybody glanced towards her following overhearing the commotion encircling the transmission. Following observing the circumstance, Lisa assumed she grasped everything. Sensing overcome by her conclusion, she proposed shifting meanwhile for explanations. Maria and Athena reacted with total confusion following waking up. Neither grasped why Kanata shared a bed with somebody or why a show existed. Mira soothed the team and started clarifying the odd circumstance. She disclosed that the broadcaster sometimes vanished briefly throughout ongoing shows. Thrilled, Lisa entered broadcaster for additional surprise transmission. Jointly, they rejoiced throughout the rooftop whilst entertaining their watchers. Broadcaster queried Lisa's sudden enthusiasm since the date was initially reserved for rest. Lisa responded that she previously grasped everything. Broadcaster clarified that broadcasting affected innumerable audience in meaningful ways. Lisa was stunned that he merely understood this significant fact. Now Lisa grew thrilled following overhearing how streamers' transmissions affected individuals. She understood his statements had altered numerous existences beyond expectations. Broadcaster clarified the temporary broadcasting system he formed employing connected terminals. Though unfinished, the setup permitted short remote shows at intervals. Lisa attended whilst broadcaster contrasted the machinery to communication methods from his earlier existence. The account assisted her understand the process. Broadcaster disclosed additional limitation of the experimental system. Besides short transmissions, each transmission reached audience multiple hours. Following recording concluded. Following finishing his account, broadcaster appreciated Mira for assisting across the date. He then sent her rearward and readied to leave. Lisa disclosed that she had readied unique gear for situations like this. Broadcaster observed her enthusiasm and recalled how loyal she stayed. Following overhearing the full account, Maria and Athena grasped the mystery. The transmission genuinely came from broadcaster. Recognizing they missed the adventure, Maria and Athena expressed their frustration jointly. They wished they had participated in the transmission themselves. The team assembled about Mira and readied something for her. Subsequent their instructions, she inspected the item they presented. The transmission shifted towards a conversation about preventing misunderstandings and clash. Throughout the dialogue, broadcaster too noted in significant pledge. News of streamers' transmissions spread throughout distinct regions and affected numerous audience. Some rejected the note whilst people embraced its meaning. The transmission concluded prior the women understood how greatly period had passed. Athena resolved to review the recording afterward, but Maria stayed centered. Maria grew convinced that something happened while she dozed alongside Kanata. Regardless her dramatic conclusion, everybody denied her assumption. Following the show, Mira relished a refreshing shower within the estate. Elsewhere, Kanata relaxed in a chair. Witnessing Kanata asleep anew, Mira fretted about his condition and guided him rearward. Jointly, they proceeded towards his chamber for proper rest. Kanata confessed that exhaustion had caught up with him following constant activity. Too fatigued to continue strolling, he labored to stay awake. Assuming a short rest would aid, Kanata lay down on a close-by bed. Prior he understood it, both he and Maria dropped asleep. The team determined that Maria and Mira dozed in the wrong chamber. The misunderstanding happened unintentionally. Maria transformed the uncomfortable mistake into additional odd appeal and inquired Mira for similar treatment. Lisa pointed out how absurd her reasoning sounded, Maria ready to leave the staying labor beyond. Yet, she observed Mira approaching and summoned out to her. Kanata apologized following recognizing Maria misunderstood the circumstance. Athena advanced in to compose everybody prior the misunderstanding grew further. Elsewhere, Maria avoided encountering Mira since embarrassment overcome her. She convinced herself that Mira had previously escaped the area. Kanata clarified that he had initially fallen asleep solitary in the hallway. Following overhearing the particulars, Athena grasped what happened. Whilst discussing the incident, Kanata recalled misplacing his coat throughout the earlier clash. Maria and Athena scanned for details about it. Athena shortly found that the missing coat had previously been healed. Reassured by the news, Maria and the people halted worrying. Whilst remaining for the people, Athena proposed eating breakfast jointly. Maria seized the opportunity and volunteered to handle the meal collection. The team obtained warm farewells prior rendering. As they left, multiple individuals queried Kanata about his disappearance. Kanata clarified that he had spent periods seeking for parts required for Lisa's mystical instrument. Maria twisted the dialogue into additional fantasy. As they strolled through the metropolis, Athena silently appreciated Kanata for saving both her and Lisa. The unforeseen thanks caught him off guard. Athena asked permission for Mira to remain at the estate longer. She wished Mira could aid train recruited soldiers. Athena pledged to visit Kanata anew in the royal metropolis someday. As they strolled jointly, the people observed intently from beyond. Athena proposed remaining in Kanata's dormitory to experience common pupil existence. Kanata rapidly refused the concept and proposed safer alternatives. Refusing to give up, Athena clarified how residing alongside Kanata would aid her learn further. She then pushed the dialogue further. Kanata misunderstood Athena's determination and assumed she desired to endure inconvenience for political causes. His response departed her speechless for an instant. Kanata reflected on everything he experienced across the principality. The encounters plus lessons he gained altered his perspective. Kanata reflected on his journey and understood he yet lacked experience. The individuals about him proceeded shaping his growth. Pondering about streaming, Kanata confessed he once felt satisfied with average outcomes. He discovered that meaningful connections mattered greatly further. As the trip determined, Kanata identified how numerous friendships and discoveries he had gained. The experience departed him satisfied and grateful. Meanwhile, deity Isla noticed the circumstance and grinned. Whilst people assumed the story concluded, she grasped larger changes awaited. Streaming proceeded influencing community much beyond basic entertainment and communication. Its fame influenced commerce, tourism, research, and innumerable existences. Deity Isla reflected on Athena's ambitious objective and pondered how Kanata would respond. Regardless numerous possibilities, she stayed inquisitive about his tomorrow. Whilst juggling apples, Isla confessed that conquering Kanata's spirit would be extremely difficult. She assumed the strength she granted crafted him unique. Isla imagined various situations that could threaten Kanata in the tomorrow. Still, whilst observing from afar, she stayed intrigued in his fate. The abandoned streaming instrument awakened and inspected its surroundings. The odd location departed it puzzled. Numerous yandere supporters awaited Kanata's return. Their rising anticipation crafted the safe metropolis. Unsettling observing everything unfold, Isla pondered if somebody had previously commenced causing moves. The belief filled her with enthusiasm about coming incidents. Gripping a keepsake connected to Kanata, Isla glanced towards the tomorrow with amusement. She anticipated ceaseless fresh shows and still larger chaos. Following coming back from the principality, Kanata discovered that his companions had previously gone residence. Elsewhere, Maria completed her official duties prior rendering. As Kanata proceeded towards the quarter where the brothel operated, he pondered about latest incidents. His quiet walk concluded. Alfana and Kana abruptly emerged prior Kanata and welcomed him. Both were reassured to see him return. The women clarified they had intended to meet him afterward that date. Yet, circumstances altered following learning about a major incident. Rather of going for lunch, Alfana pulled Kanata closer and crafted additional appeal. She insisted that he visit her office shortly. Kanata attempted to leave, but Alfana halted him prior he could escape. She declined to let their reunion end. Following assembling her courage, Alfana inquired Kanata to spend periods solitary with her. The unforeseen invitation departed him speechless. Throughout their dinner jointly, Alfana attended as Kanata clarified his responsibilities. Though she grasped, she yet appeared disappointed. Alfana confessed that she had been remaining for Kanata's return. Teasing him grew her way of expressing these emotions. As her imagination ran wild, Alfana pictured ridiculous situations with Kanata. Logical pondering vanished beneath her rising enthusiasm and fondness. Whilst remaining for Kanata, Alfana imagined absurd training activities jointly. Her daydreams grew so intense that reality almost vanished. Following eventually finishing his record, Kanata apologized for retaining Alfana remaining. She embraced promptly, although she yet attempted appearing dignified. Once they settled down, Kanata brought up the incident at the park. Alfana grew nervous when he asked aid understanding what happened. Alfana confessed she knew about the incident but avoided discussing it earlier. Kanata assumed the matter had previously passed and rested. Witnessing his response, Alfana felt disappointed and labored to continue the dialogue. She regretted remaining too long prior changing the subject. The team obtained permission to recreate streamer's popular hoodie design. Still, deity Isla grew intrigued and showed off the fresh clothing. Kanata handed the jacket to Alfana and proposed she tried herself. Once solitary, she started examining each detail. Incapable to stop pondering about the jacket, Alfana grew preoccupied across the date. She still contemplated asking Maria for advice afterward. Following changing clothes, Kanata attempted on the produced hoodie. The comfortable fit impressed him and verified the design worked. Elsewhere, Alfana stayed overcome by enthusiasm following handling Kanata's belongings. Still, a calming drink appeared insufficient to settle her emotions. While staring at Kanata's abandoned cup, Alfana labored against temptation. She reminded herself of her responsibilities. Still, curiosity proceeded rising. Prior cause could stop her. Alfana acted on instinct. The decision happened so rapidly that she scarcely grasped it herself. Following touching the cup, Alfana's imagination ran out of control. In her thoughts, the basic act grew a cherished memory. Afterward, Kanata came back and appreciated Alfana for remaining. She hid her ideas and pretended everything stayed perfectly normal. When Kanata proposed exploring the fortress city jointly, Alfana embraced lacking hesitation. The invitation instantly transformed her mood and enthusiasm. As they explore the lively streets, Alfana enjoys her ice cream, watches performers, and treasures each basic instant shared alongside Kanata. Worried that crowds might separate them, Kanata asked to hold Alfana's palm for safety, rendering her stunned by the appeal. While strolling jointly, Kanata praises the metropolis and mentions having fun with a lovely guide. Oblivious his statements create confusion. Alfana misunderstands his remark and assumes additional girl accompanied him prior their outing, causing jealousy and insecurity to flood her thoughts.